OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
It's 7:30. It's OTB AM. Very good morning to you. Eoin, how are you getting on?
Good, Adrian. How are things?
We should tell all our viewers this morning and our listeners that if you're not into rugby this morning, go somewhere else. Is that what we should do? Is that a statement of fact? Bit harsh.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If you're not into rugby, you are going to come away from this morning's show loving rugby. So I think it's more of a reason to hang around if it's not your thing.
Good point. Ever the salesman, Eoin. Well done. I was, as it can be on a week like this where I'm on the Friday, I've been sort of stewing over things a little bit during the week. And probably ever since the end of the Ireland game, really, at the weekend, to be honest. And feeling the, obviously, reaction to Billy Burns and what happened at the end of the match. And also coupled with reading I don't know if you picked up the Jurgen Klopp piece in the author's name totally escapes me, in The Athletic during the week, where there were reflections on the fact that Jurgen Klopp's mum had passed away over the last couple of weeks, which before I'd read the piece, wasn't something I was appreciative of, and had seen the reaction that was going viral during the week to Jurgen Klopp and the reporter who had asked him a fairly straightforward question after the game at the weekend and got a pretty spiky response for his troubles. And indeed, Klopp has been a bit spiky over the last little while, and people have been sort of assuming that it's all been to do with the fact that Liverpool themselves have gone a little bit sideways, but I suppose the Athletic pointed out that maybe there was a little bit more to it than that. But yeah, it all got me to think about the toll, I suppose, that that elite level sport, or any sport really, I suppose, can take on people personally. And I wondered about if we'd ever been historically on in a place like that where audiences or fans understand that better than they do now. I think that fans do understand that better than they've ever done before. I also think we've probably never been in a better place for opportunity for fans to get in contact with those people, right? Like, I mean, whether it's tagging them on Twitter or, laying into them if they so choose. As we've seen with Ian Wright, obviously, can manifest himself in all kinds of vicious and horrible ways we've seen over the last few weeks. But yeah, so I suppose important, obviously, the caveat to all this is to say that there isn't clearly any room for that level of abuse that goes on, where you're sort of tagging players in and you're like making it a very personal level of abuse. But I was kind of thinking about the idea that, like, the essence of sport and about how it's the having a right good moan at the opposition hard player, or the team, your team's bogey team, or the pantomime villain manager in the other team's dugout. Like, that's as much a part of sport for me as it is celebrating a goal when you go one up, like, or having a lash off your own players when they do something wrong. I don't think there's ever like a need to go over the line, but I do think that there can't be a single player or a coach anywhere in any sport on the planet doesn't expect that there's some sort of level of criticism coming their way. And I just think that our enjoyment of sport is going to become a lesser thing if we're all in a position where, when what happened to Billy Burns at the end of the game last night, or what Billy Burns did at the end of the game last weekend, I should say, that we're all thinking, well, listen, hang on a second here. I was watching that in my front room and I absolutely lost the plot. That's not something I'm going to do online and directed at Billy Burns. But I think that if I was at the game, or if I'm at home watching that game, or whatever it might be, I think we need to protect the fact that you're allowed, and it's an intrinsic part of sport, to have a right old moan off, whether it's the opposition players or your own.
Amazing. Paddy O'Shea never called Westmeath people the roughest type of animals out there, but maybe he should have.
He probably should have.
Displayed a real lack of caring for your own players and for opposition players this morning, Adrian. I should clarify, it was Simon Hughes who wrote the piece about Klopp in The Athletic this week. I'm getting my Liverpool writers mixed up. Really good piece. And what you're saying is right. There is like a huge difference between some of the abuse that Billy Burns would have got and you dancing around not dancing, angrily stomping around your living room on Sunday afternoon because he had crushed your hopes and dreams in that moment. And you expect good things, especially from professional athletes. And I think that the whole thing maintains even inter-county amateur athletes sometimes as well, that, you are quite often somebody maybe who pays into games, or you feel that you have a real attachment to the player on show, and to be let down by a player, of course that can lead to frustration. It should lead to frustration, because without that frustration, you can't actually enjoy the ecstasy that comes with them doing the right thing from time to time. So I don't think anybody's come out and said that sports fans shouldn't be sports fans, and real, honest reactions should be muted. I think what a lot of the reaction has been over the last couple of days has been on the back of the Ian Wright case, and kind of more of a wide eyes view of what can actually happen on social media, what can actually happen when you have a frustrated individual who lashes out. What's happened in the aftermath of the Ireland game is on a level way below that, for sure. But there was still some pretty disgusting stuff tweeted at Billy Burns. And like, to be honest with you, it's more just that it's a really weird thing to do to at somebody on Twitter and either, like in Burns' situation, tell him to go back to England or whatever, and firing a load of expletives on top of that. Fair enough, like saying stuff, not that sort of stuff, but saying other stuff in your living room in a private company of whoever is lucky enough to be watching the game with you. But to go onto Twitter and at somebody and say that sort of stuff, I always find just to be kind of weird, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's plenty of it out there if you go searching for it. And like, you know, I don't know, it is difficult. That point about fans being able to contact players and coaches now more easily than they ever had before. Like, you know, it's there's a level of that's tough, and I presume from I don't know actually even know if Billy Burns is on Twitter, but I know there's brothers on Twitter, and I know that we're going to be talking to him a little bit later on about his reaction to obviously to what went on and all that sort of stuff. It's hard. I appreciate that it's hard to avoid it if you are on social media. That you know, frequently people have their DMs open or whatever it might be, and there's stuff landing in there that you really just don't want to see, and like you really, and we wouldn't ever endorse the fact that you know, in fact we'd be very counter to the idea of any level of personal abuse in relation to sports people. You just got to let it off a little bit. We have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in the house here, Eoin, and I don't mind saying to you that after the game, the 4-year-old was going around, and this can happen at times, saying, "Oh, for F's sake," quite regularly, to the point where the 2-year-old said, "Oh, as Con was saying, F's sake." It's literally one of the first sentences that the 2-year-old has put together. So,
Adrian. No, so this is what angry sports dad. This is the impact that angry sports dad has on his kids.
Yeah, but like there is that thing of like being able to vent at your team or the opposition team because you stood in the cat that morning and you didn't fully work it out of your system. Like, I think that's actually really important for people.
For it to be an avenue.
Yes.
Like, it is and it isn't. Like, of course it's important. It's important as a distraction. But I also think that sometimes that pent-up frustration can spill out way too far towards the athlete. That, like, you've had a bad day, something bad has happened in your own life, and then you utilize sport as a way of lashing out on somebody. Like, I'm not sure if that is necessarily a positive. Like, it's a great avenue. It's great escapism. It's been better escapism than a lot of other things, especially over the last 6 months. And maybe that is like half the reason why we're seeing much more anger on social media and much more pent-up frustration being expressed on social media as a result of what's happened over the last 11 months or thereabouts. And like it does, like that frustration can then manifest itself in really disgusting outpourings of hate if you are that way inclined. Like, I'm not saying it's like that's happening from your perspective at all, but from somebody who might be that way inclined, if they're feeling the same level of frustration that you have, they might lash out in a very different way. Like, I just think Billy Burns is on Twitter for the record, and if you went through his mentions of the immediate aftermath of the game last week, you wouldn't have found some amazing stuff there. And I always just find, take all the frustration you want out. Just don't at the player, don't DM the player, don't DM the person. Exactly. Like, have it going on in your own little personal situation and your own room, and curse in front of your kids all you want.
Yeah. Thanks for that permission, on, because I don't think there's any end in sight for that anytime soon. We should probably do at some point like your top 10 most disappointing sporting moments of all time, and obviously not at any of the players into it. It's coming up on 20 to 8 on this Friday morning. We have a real stacked show for you coming up over the next little while. It is OTB AM. We're live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We have a really fully stacked every day for you, but it's very much the case again today. We're going to talk to Alan Quinlan very shortly ahead of Ireland against France, obviously the weekend. Some leaks on the team across the papers this morning, so we'll get his insight on that. Louise Galvin, former Ireland rugby player, former and soon to be returned Kerry footballer, Louise Galvin is going to talk to us as well a little bit about, we might focus on some of the backs with Louise and exactly how they stack up, and maybe get a bit of a sense of her return as well with Kerry. We're going to have a bit of focus on France a little bit later on. We're going to talk to Philippe Saint-André about exactly where they're at post-World Cup and the Fabien Galtier rain. Phil Egan is going to join us. That'll be our football slot for the morning. He'll talk to us and mark your card about what it is you need to watch this weekend. We must watch with Phil coming up a little bit later on. As we mentioned there, Freddie Burns, live from Japan, will be coming your way to give us some insight from inside the Burns household this week and what that's been like. And he himself has been at the centre of some of that storm in the past as well, so he'll be uniquely placed to give us a sense of that. Cold Cuts, it's episode 3 or 4. I mean, there's a lot of people surprised that it's made it this far, but yet it continues, and there's some beauts in there again this week, particularly around the comments in relation to Dermot Gallagher during the week, and also the Welsh reaction, obviously, to the lad saying that we were going to get stuffed last weekend. Crappy quiz coming your way, and then we'll round things off with Conor Hourihane, who is in conversation with Nathan on the football show last night. So that is all coming your way over the next while between now and 10 a.m. this morning. So do stay tuned. Do keep your comments coming into us as well, by the way. Really want to hear from you over the course of the day, whether it's looking ahead to the rugby or whatever it is you're having yourself. Any thoughts on what we were talking about there at the top as well? Do keep those coming into us between now and 10. But we do want to kick things off with the rugby, and I believe Alan Quinlan, you're standing by. Morning, Quinny.
Morning, lads. How are you?
Good, thanks. We some leaks doing the rounds. I'm sure you've been looking at the back pages already this morning to see what the team makeup is going to be. Will we jump in with the back row, Quinny, and see what your take is here? Do you know, I was looking at the stats for Rhys Ruddock, because he's a name that comes up fairly regularly about that he hasn't had enough caps. Rhys Ruddock, 26 caps, 12 starts, 14 as a sub. Alan Quinlan, 27 caps, 11 starts, and 16 as a sub. Your careers are... there's a parallel here.
Yeah, there is a little bit. He hasn't played since that game in the quarterfinals. He came off the bench in Japan. So yeah, he isn't kicked on really. I think he's had injuries, but I'm a fan of Rhys Ruddock. I think he's a really good player. He's a very aggressive player, great ball carrier, and someone who I have no issue having in the team. I think he's well capable of doing a really good job for Ireland on Sunday, and he's the right person to go in there at the moment. I think his form has been good with Leinster, and someone who will definitely not be daunted by the task. In fact, he'll be out to prove a point, I think, and he's a very physical player against a side who are going to be, they're a big, strong, physical side, France, and I'm sure he'll do well, Rhys Ruddock, on Sunday, and won't let the side down in any way.
Yeah, he hasn't featured since the Rugby World Cup, so you'd have to assume from all of that Andy Farrell wasn't necessarily beating a path to him, maybe not have been the biggest fan. Does he suffer a bit, Quinny, and I'll venture to say in the most complimentary sense that you might have done this, suffered a bit of this yourself, perhaps unfairly, but with the optics of seen as a bit of an old dog for the hard road?
Maybe a little bit, yeah. I think probably the reason he hasn't featured is the depth that's been there, and probably more flair players. And it's probably a perception really from the public and maybe coaches that that electric spark is not there to make line breaks and break defenders down and run 40, 50 yards up the field and have an ability to do that. But he is an old dog for the hard road, if you like, and as you say, I just think his work rate is through the roof, and the amount of moments he has in a game is very impressive, and they're all pretty positive. He's not your flair player, as you say, as I was saying there in the back row, but someone who I think the amount of tackles he puts in, his ability to break down. Defensively, he's very, very strong and physical, and for one reason or another, he hasn't really had a prolonged period in the Irish side. And
why is that, Quinny? Do you think?
Well, I think he made his debut very, very young, and he's been seen as a player who can fill a gap for you, if you like, and someone who won't let the side down. But I think because of probably the competition that's there, and probably more flair in the other back row players, footballing ability, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's unfair in the sense that, I would have possibly started him last week, and because of his form, and I think he just plays at a high level continuously. Caelan Doris is a loss because he brings that footballing skill and ability that's at a different level, that you kind of probably look at your back rows and you want someone who's a really outstanding footballer, offloader, and his form was outstanding in the last year or so, Caelan Doris. But I'd be very surprised if, I don't think Rhys Ruddock ever plays a bad game for Leinster or Ireland. So it's no big deal. I think he's there on merit, and he was pushing to be close to selection anyway. So I think he's someone who can have a big performance and a big bearing on the match on Sunday.
Yeah, from reading the reports, it seems like Johnny Sexton will return to play, and James Ryan conversely won't. So the second row will be made up of Henderson and Byrne. Will you talk to us about that, the impact of that, and maybe the impact of it on the line out as well?
Yeah, James Ryan was a huge loss last week, and in fairness to Ian Henderson, he hadn't played in a while, but he came off the bench and played very well. He's a wonderful player, Ian Henderson. My only criticism at times has been just for him to be more of a presence, have more of a kind of a narky attitude, and just be a bit of an enforcer as well. He's a really good footballer, good stepper when he carries, finds a little bit of space, and he was on the British and Irish lines in 2017, and I think his form for Ireland and even on that line tour was, I think back to the performance he had against the Hurricanes in Wellington in the midweek team. He was outstanding. So he has that ability, and he's played very, very well for Ireland over the years, but you just love to see him have more of a presence and be more vocal, and maybe it's not in his nature to be barking orders and shouting and roaring in the field, but there's a real onus on him on Sunday now to run the line out, to be dominant, to be physically imposing against Willems and Bernard Leroux, who are very physical players for France. They're big physical guys. So James Ryan is a loss, but I think to have someone like Ian Henderson to come in, and I think last Sunday will have done him the world of good. Tadhg Beirne was outstanding in Cardiff, but physically they're coming up against two big, powerful guys who have been playing very well for France. So it's a big challenge, that one, and that tight five battle is probably key to Ireland. Getting a performance, getting a result on Sunday. So it's James Ryan is a loss because of his quality, and the work rate is through the roof, and what he does in the field for Ireland. But to have someone like Henderson to come in is a big boost. Who'll come on the bench? Will it be Ryan Baird or Ultan Dillane? I'm not really sure, but we're a little bit thin in the ground there. I'd probably put Ultan Dillane at this stage because of the he's been there, done that, and he has that experience. I think Ryan Baird, it's a big ask for him. He's a wonderful player, wonderful footballer, but probably not the most physically imposing. And I think Dillane has been there, and he has incredible physicality for a second row, and huge work rate. So I don't know. I'd have no issue with Ryan Baird being there, but I would lean towards Ultan Dillane. Again, someone probably was a point to prove. He's been on the periphery of the Ireland setup for a number of years, in and out a little bit. So it's a challenging one for him, missing James Ryan, and who knows whether Sexton or not will start. The team will be announced at lunchtime today. There's obviously, everyone has an opinion and debate whether he should or shouldn't start. Obviously, if he's past fit, is it still right for him to play? It's probably outside our remit to call that, but I'm sure he'll call it in the right way, and the Irish management will. But you would imagine the average turnaround for concussions in the modern game, and this came from World Rugby and a conference call I was on last week, is probably 3 weeks for a player if they have concussion, that they're out for 2 to 3 weeks. And that's what the average is. That's not set in stone that you have to be out for that number of weeks. You obviously have to go through your protocols and be asymptomatic before you start that 6-stage process. So I think the concern is, neither player will have fully trained. I think, look, as you said, James Ryan it looks like he's not going to be involved. But if Johnny Sexton was past fit, how much involvement would he have had in the training during the week? And maybe you're better off to go with the guys who trained all week and put the preparation and the time and the minutes in.
There's been some comparisons this week between what the French doctors said about Johnny Sexton and what Eddie Jones said about Johnny Sexton a couple of years ago, the comments about his parents. Is that a fair comparison, or do you have to really put this on a different level because these are trained professionals and they've got a little bit of expertise, to say the least, in the general subject, maybe not on Sexton specifically?
Yeah, well, it was completely unethical, wasn't it? And he was right in saying that. And it just brings more attention to the whole situation. Of course, we've got to talk about concussion and have these discussions given the issues that former players have and the dementia symptoms that they have. And that's been very high profile recently with that coming out in the press. So it is a concern that, but I think concussion has been managed totally differently than it was in the past when I played. There's a lot more emphasis. There's independent doctors at every game, at all these internationals, 24 camera angles the independent doctor has. He can call a player off the field at any stage. And so I think a lot has changed. And but for, the Eddie Jones thing really irked me and annoyed me in a couple of years back, because it is the impact. It's not really the player themselves that would be too concerned about what other people say, but it's probably what frustrates Johnny Sexton is his mom and dad and brothers and sisters and his wife and kids and stuff hearing this and it just being kind of discussed openly, which is wrong. You wouldn't have that if you go to your own doctor. I believe, of course, it's in the public eye and people all want to know what's happening and how it's been managed. But I think World Rugby have done the best they can the last couple of years to try and reduce the number of concussions and the risk that's there for players. But to have coaches coming out talking about it and a doctor like that, I think the doctor was totally wrong. And it doesn't. I think that I automatically think straight away this is a ploy from the French. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody in the French camp was talking to that doctor and asked him to put this out during the week and have it as a major distraction or talking point. But he knows himself, the Irish medics, and I'd be pretty strong on this, that there's no doctor in Ireland or no doctor involved with the Irish rugby camp would be coaxing Johnny Sexton, or the coaches be coaxing him to go out and play if he didn't pass those protocols. It's not something you want to see, a player getting concussed on Sunday and playing the following Sunday. But it depends what the symptoms were, and I suppose the past does come into it. Head knocks he's had before, but he hasn't had a concussion in a long time. So it'll be judged on its own merits, and they'll make that decision. I just think maybe if it was me, and I was trying to think about this last night, would it be better off if he didn't play? Is it a case of less distraction, just put Ross Byrne or Billy Burns out there, start the game? Maybe that would be better. I don't know. If Johnny Sexton is fit, healthy and well, he would be very important to Ireland on Sunday. But I think what the French doctor did was totally wrong, immoral and disturbing, to say the least.
Quinny, when we look on the rugby side in relation to Sexton, there was so much chat. It seems like he'll play now, but there was so much chat during the week that if he wasn't to play, that Billy Burns would get to start. I have to say I was a bit surprised that it was such a sure thing. Whatever about Andy Farrell kind of balls it out with the player who made an error and maybe he wants to back him, it's not as if there aren't several other options at the same type of level, arguably at a slightly better level. Are you surprised that it appears he's going to be the backup again this weekend, or that the chat was about him starting again?
I'm not surprised, because I think of me as the player and being involved in a group, and if I was the coach, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If this works, if Billy Burns was to start and you're looking for a reaction out of the player. I know fly half is a real confidence position, and if you do well and things go well in the game, you can have a superb performance out of the player. If something goes wrong early in the game, if he starts, it can have the opposite effect. But it doesn't surprise me, and I think Andy Farrell is that type of guy who would back his players, and there's probably, some people would say you need to be more ruthless, but we don't. They didn't call in another fly half, Adrian. So if Johnny Sexton doesn't play, it's Billy Burns or Ross Byrne. If Billy Burns is sitting on the bench last week as number 2, well then he probably should be number one this week if that's the case. If you take out the couple of mistakes that he had, and you want to back the player. So it doesn't surprise me that Andy Farrell would back the player because, and you could get a great reaction out of him if he plays. He's a very good footballer. It's going to be a big task if he does start because France are so good. But you could have a superb performance out of someone like Billy Burns if he plays. Damned if you do, damned if you don't, that kind of a scenario. What does it say? Does it cast him to one side? And, if Ross Burns starts and he went down after a couple of minutes and Billy Burns has to come on, like, how would he be affected then, Billy Burns, from not starting? Is it a case of drop the head and then have to play 70 minutes and that can be playing in his mind. So I don't know. It's like having a crystal ball looking into it. But if he's number 2 last week, he should be number 1 this week, if according to the pecking order.
How many more chances does a player like that get then, Alan? Is it sort of like last chance saloon pretty soon, unfortunately, if that's how he started coming off the bench last week?
Yeah, well, look, if you've it probably is, and that's where probably Andy Farrell would need to be ruthless. And I don't know, I can't tell you what he's thinking. You want to try and back players, and I went through a period in my career where it was harder to get into the team than get out of the team at times because Ireland were on a very kind of a really, really good run, and if they lost the game to one of the top nations or the Six Nations in a Test match during the summer November game, invariably they would bounce back and win the next game. And Eddie O'Sullivan at the time would have given the players an opportunity to bounce back. By and large, the vast majority would have got that opportunity to bounce back. Given what they've done in previous games, Billy Burns doesn't have a big CV in him to look back and say, well, he's been there, done this for Ireland multiple times. He's got to kind of answer the critics and show people what he can do and show that he can be at this level and he's good enough to be at this level. We still don't know because international rugby is so much different than playing European or Pro 14. It's a massive step up. And I was really interesting to hear James Lowe this week talking about the difference, the way you get punished, one little mistake, and it's a try. You can do so many good things in a game, and then you switch off. The pace, the tempo, and the quality of the opposition is so much different. So it is a little bit of last chance saloon because public perception, whether it's right or wrong, kind of adds to the fact that if Billy Burns was to play and not have a good game and Ireland were to lose, well then you've got to find some change, and he probably will go for change and call in some of the young players, given that we're kind of halfway between in the World Cup cycle.
Yeah, well, look at it. It's obviously France team full of confidence, and Ireland after a fairly error-strewn opening weekend last weekend. No Ryan, no Mahoney, is Sexton fully fit, no crowd. France adds on, so Ireland to win, Quinny.
Yeah, well, I think. Look, I'm kind of glass half full after last Sunday. I think it still wasn't a perfect. Even with 14 men, we're all talking about the sending off and how critical that was. Of course it was. James Ryan for me was a huge loss out there as well. And it's just those mistakes and errors that they made in the second half. They can't afford to do that on Sunday. There was lots of positives, but mentally they've got to fight through this one and really pick themselves up on Sunday and just claw the result if they can. You can call these games, Adrian, and you can have egg in your face very, very easily as a pundit and be too optimistic. I was a bit pessimistic last week going in because I just knew the reaction from Wales. I just think it's there for Ireland. If they cut out the mistakes and errors, I think they can find a performance and get a result against a side that are full of confidence. If they allowed France to get their tails up, it could be a difficult day and Ireland will be beaten. But I'm leaning towards an Irish win. Maybe I'm crazy, but leaning towards that win.
Your fellow pundit Eoin there knows all about calling games incorrectly. So listen, if you need a shoulder to cry on at some point,
he didn't talk up the French or talk down the French team this week, did he? Himself and Gerard said they were absolutely crap and useless, and it didn't make media Olympic or any stuff like that. So, like I said on Monday, Adrian, it was all their fault that we lost against Wales.
I'm with you 100%. Come on, enjoy the games over the weekend.
Cheers, lads. Thanks.
Thanks a million, Alan Quinlan, as always, there on a Friday morning. It's 8 o'clock, and we've a brilliant show lined up for you still to come. Plenty more rugby chat. This morning, we're going to hear from Conor Hourihane as well. The latest episode of the Crappy Quiz, we're going to bring you around about 9:30 or thereabouts. And before that, we're going to be talking to Freddie Burns, former England international and, of course, brother of the current Ireland out half. Philippe Saint-André will give us the angle from France, and we're back after these with Louise Galvin.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
This is OTB Sports Radio.
For Brady in American football, it is incredibly specific, and very, very few people get to hit him. He should be in an armchair ride. He runs on, he runs off. It's about having a really good arm. Rugby is multidiscipline. They call him a quarterback. That's lazy journalism in my view. Johnny is our best out half.
Off the Ball, Saturdays from 1 on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Calling all builders, joiners, plasterers and dryliners. Need advice on the right materials for the job? Consider it done. You need them on site and in your hand. Consider it done. You want access to over 10,000 products from the leading construction brands without having to start up the van. Consider it done. There's another way of doing things. eTag. We talk with you to solve your problem and deliver what you need directly onto site. No second guessing, no seconds wasted. Click etag.ie.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, study the form with our Racing Post Spotlight before watching the action with free live streaming on all UK and Irish horse races. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, it's gone 8 o'clock on this Friday morning. Still loads to come. We're going to catch up with Freddie Burns. We're going to talk to Philippe Saint-André. We have a crappy quiz coming your way. Conor Hourihane as well. Cold cuts as well coming your way a little bit later on. So plenty more. And stay tuned and keep your comments coming in. There are plenty of them in relation to the rugby and everything else as well. But I'm delighted to say at just after 8 on this Friday morning, Louise Galvin joins us on the line. Morning, Louise.
Morning.
We might get stuck into the back three maybe to begin with, because we've been talking a fair bit about the forwards with Quinny there a few minutes ago. So there weren't that many in the team that really impressed last week, but I know there's been a bit of a shake-up and a call for a shake-up with the back three. It looks like it may not happen, in fact, but Earl's possibly most under threat, with maybe Larmer and others looking to come in there. What's your take, Louise, on the back three and your depth chart almost on that?
Yeah, I suppose, look, if there's going to be changes in the rest of the team, you don't want Andy Farrell making changes wholesale. You want some element of a settled team. So I don't see a lot of changes coming in the back three. I mean, if you were to rate the lads from last week, Keith Earls probably would be disappointed. Well, he would be disappointed considering the standards that he has set for himself. But he's such a consistent performer for Ireland on both sides of the ball, but particularly in that Joe Schmidt era. Defensively, he was such a rock that I think he certainly deserves a chance to rectify his substandard, I suppose, performance last week. He looked a bit rattled by like a drop ball earlier in the game and never really got into it. I guess if you compare with James Lowe on the other wing, Lowe is someone who, if the ball isn't coming to him, he will naturally come and look for it, and he's just naturally more robust and enjoys those physical challenges. So he's maybe a bit more adept at working his way into a game if the ball isn't coming out to him than maybe Keith Earls. And then, look, to be honest, I think in Hugo Keenan we've found a gem for ourselves. Excuse me. I mean, we always said, you know, there's been a position up for grabs there in full back, and a lot of people talk about the defensive qualities of a good full back, and Rob Kearney often didn't give the praise that he deserved until he was gone. But he was one of the most capped full backs. I think he's the most capped full back in Test rugby. And we're asking someone to fill his shoes, and I think Hugo Keenan has strung a few very consistent performances together, albeit in the wing last year in the first two games, but he's done particularly well, and I think he certainly needs to continue that position for both Leinster and Ireland in order to give him that level of experience and bring him up to around the same level as someone as Rob Kearney.
It's interesting what you say about James Lowe there, that he can get himself into the game. He likes the physical side of it a little bit more, and that's hugely positive when it comes to the attack. Is there a little bit too much eagerness in defence sometimes from James Lowe? Maybe I'm just focusing in a little bit too much on one of the Welsh tries from last week, where perhaps he jumps into the tackle a little bit too quickly.
Yeah, and I suppose on a little bit of that is timing as well, because you'll see once or twice Keenan does it where he shuts it down, but he manages to get man and ball and prevent the offload or prevent the pass. So, I mean, as a back three player, often you are left with that decision: do I jam in now and try to shut it down? And it might not be so much as, oh, he's just eager for the physicality exchange, but when you do it, you have to get your timing right, or you have to make the decision: do I have enough help coming from the inside that actually we can concede a little bit of space and a little bit of position here and shut this down on the wing rather than jam in. So maybe he is eager to make that big hit, but as I say, Keenan did it, he just got his timing right, which is obviously something we want to see. But I think Earl starts again because maybe with James Lowe, we don't have that 100% solidity at the back, and Keenan's doing really, really well. I think he's a fantastic footballer. I think he made a huge difference even in that Munster-Leinster game. I mean, I know we talk about Ross Burns' kick and Larmour finishing it, but Keenan's, the way he collected that ball and got that offload away, I'm pretty sure it was Keith Earls coming in to tackle him. It shows just such experience for a man of his age that I think Earls stays there, because he allows someone like Keenan to flourish, because he is generally so consistent beside him on the wing. And then as well, if you're looking for impact off the bench, Jordan Larmour is that player. And I know it's an awful tag to get, but if you want someone to come in when defences are getting a bit tired, when your line speed is a bit reduced and the game maybe opens up a little bit, then I think Jordan Larmour is that player to come in and have that bit of an X factor and have that half break chance. A little bit unlucky, one of, I suppose, the black marks against Hugo last week was maybe when you should have skipped past out to the wing, and I think he hit, I think it was Larmour, and there ended up being a knock on where there was an opportunity there where the game was just opening up near the end of the game. But again, these are all, I suppose, works in progress as well.
Yeah, and it's less likely that France are going to kick the ball as much as England. They'll probably run a little bit, so maybe it is a case of horses, of course, in that way. Do we, just when we're talking about Lowe there, are we using his boot enough, Louise, like looking at some of the range he can get off that left boot? And I mean both from open play and from dead ball as well. Is that a weapon that we could utilise a bit more?
Yeah, it certainly is. Again, the fact that he's left-footed, again, going back to having Rob Kearney on the team as well, it was a nice balance to have. I guess as a team we're often, I suppose, there's complaints that we kick too much. So for adding in another person that we're asking to kick, I mean, it's I suppose it's situational, because if we need to get out of trouble, fair enough, we can use his boot, but we know a lot of his skill is in that confrontational contact area of the game. So I wouldn't like to see James Lowe turn into necessarily someone who's kicking more than anything else. I think we've enough of that in the squad at the moment. I think Hugo Keelan kick well. Obviously Murray, we're going to use his box kicks a lot, and whoever is playing at 10, whoever is lining out as well.
Yeah. What's the other question of the week has been who the second best out half in Ireland is?
Look, we're not going to make that decision based on last weekend. I think this has been probably talked to death. It'll be interesting to see if Sexton is fit to play. I would imagine Billy Burns will start on the bench, will be on the bench again. If not, it'll be interesting. But again, Andy Farrell tends to have a little bit of loyalty there, and I'm not sure if you throw the baby out with the bathwater. If Sexton doesn't start, I would see him giving Burns a chance, and Ross Byrne coming into the bench. That didn't really directly answer your question. I'm always a big Jack Carty fan, to be honest. I think he's been given a bit of a rough time of it since the World Cup last year. I think he brings a bit of variety. Another thing we have to be careful of is, a lot of people are already talking about Joey Carberry. He's had such a prolonged injury since the World Cup, since before the World Cup. Like, just let him get back playing at Munster, let him get in a few minutes under his belt. Let's not launch him straight into the national squad and put, from the media anyway, a load of pressure that we need him back ASAP because we need him for the next World Cup. He's not there at the moment, and it'll likely be end of 2021. Hopefully we'll get him back in with game time under his belt, but let's not accelerate his return for the sake of actually putting him into an injury situation again.
Yeah, it feels like a weekend that will still be, like you said, it's been talked to death. I think we'll probably still be talking it again. I've absolutely no doubt about it next week. Alan Quinlan was just telling us he's a glass half full man in relation to a potential outcome on Sunday. What are you thinking?
Yeah, like France are definitely the form team, but we all know France can, when they travel, they can just turn up like a completely different team. I know it's such a cliche that we use with them. Again, there was positives from last weekend. I mean, we're down to 14 men for, you know, the majority of the game, and we still are in a position to win it at the end of it, which is a huge positive. I think, like, again, it's back to, are we looking for at the moment Six Nations wins or first or second place? Are we looking to build towards World Cup? If we're looking to build towards World Cup, a pretty good performance and against a very strong and informed French team might not be as bad of a thing as it might be seen as, you know, in the run-up in World Cup year, for example, in 2019. So if we were to lose by, you know, get the bonus point within a try, and we're getting a bit more settled, we're getting a bit more of the way Andy Farr wants the team playing, then I don't think that's necessarily a disaster. So I wouldn't expect to win, but I don't think there should be much in it either, particularly playing at home.
Louise, we can't let you go without asking you about the big sports story in Kerry this week. Your return to the Kerry team confirmed this week, I understand.
Apparently so. Yeah, I didn't see anything, but your good producer let me know that it was anyway. Yeah, look, obviously having left Sevens and moved back home, and was very lucky to get in the tail end of a successful club career. My club, Fenwick St. Sidons, and we ended up being promoted out of intermediate. So definitely got the buzz back, got the hunger back, and look, I was never going to just step away and not train. So I just had conversation with the managers around Christmas time, and they invited me back in. Now, it doesn't feel like I'm back in because we haven't we're training remotely. We're doing the Zoom calls like everything else. We're doing our training, gym, HIIT, fitness work, but I haven't physically sat in a dressing room with the squad. So I feel like I need to actually tick that box, whether it be after Easter now at this stage, before I really feel like I've returned. But that's the plan for the moment anyway, and just delighted to be given the chance. Bring up the average age of the squad, but
how did that news actually then affect you then this week, the news that there won't be any inter-county training until after Easter at the earliest? Like, I presume you had started to get March the 5th in your head maybe a little bit, and does the training now change a little bit? Does things go out the window a bit when it comes to your own personal pre-season?
Yeah, listen, we're very much led and dictated by the management within the squad. We've our S&C, we've a pretty good setup. So I suppose it's a bit continuous status quo for the moment. I know the squad or the management were waiting to see what the official word was from headquarters, and it seems to be delay again. So look, we had a bit of a deload week anyway this week, and kind of retesting at the weekend of some of our fitness sessions, and we'll plan from there. A bit like anything, you just have to take it day by day. I suppose I've returned full time to the health sector working in Tralee in the hospital, so I can see pretty firsthand the effects of this whole pandemic and how this third wave has really hit us hard. So I completely understand A, what's out of my control, and B, that I'm incredibly lucky to be part of any squad and have that kind of feedback of these the sessions you should be doing, because sometimes when you're training on your own it's actually hard to have the focus. So I'm just glad to have that for the moment. And I think I suppose when I've had that kind of 5 or 6 year break from the squad, either way, whenever we get back in, I'll be itching to actually get onto the field and hopefully blend in with the girls again. Hopefully not tackle anyone.
That was one of the things that they did say during the week, the fact that inter-county players just can't be put into a bubble like professional players. And I guess you're living proof of that. So many people like yourself working in the health service, working on the front lines, clearly not able to put themselves into a bubble, are very much required in their professional life.
Yeah, and I think we just have to be patient, because last year, in fairness to the GA, the LGFA, the Camogie Association, they got and the leagues got finished for the men. It didn't get finished for the ladies, but they got the championship up and running, and they created a really, really good product for both the people, for both the players, and a safe product, but also for people at home to have something to watch and enjoy and look forward to. I suppose the issue now is the whole master plan gets thrown particularly, well, maybe not thrown out the window, but it has to be looked at again, Eoin, because are we going county first, club second? How do the leagues look now? And obviously, everything can be postponed at any stage again. And it looks like the government, as you say, are taking a different view on what level 5 is and on what elite sports is. But look, I'm someone, I would have played a lot of basketball as well. When I see, like, they were never considered elite sports. They'd professional players flown in, had to fly them out again. It is what it is. But hopefully, like, touch wood, I've been vaccinated, and I know that's being rolled out at the moment. So the more that the population are vaccinated and we can get back to some level of training and playing as normal, fantastic. For the moment, I'm just glad to be part of a squad and being given sessions, and even as, you know, part of a team, because that's something I definitely would have missed when I left the rugby behind.
The transition from the oval ball to the round ball hasn't always gone according to plan, Louise, maybe for Kerry players over the last few years. Have you been, you've got a decent training partner at home, have you been trying to get reused to it, and how are you finding all that?
Yeah, it's been tough. I suppose we've had a few, it's handy. We're actually back living in his home neck of the woods, Dunk's home neck of the woods in Cremon, and so the pitch is right beside us. A few arguments, about why I can't hook kick off my left, but I'm getting plenty of feedback anyway, and a good training buddy. But, you know, I told him it's easy, play one sport and focus on that. So we're getting along grand. Yeah, it's challenging, no, but it's brilliant, because you're trying to get the skills back up again. And if, you know, we've one ladies ball, one men's ball, and we're just working off both of them. It's great to have someone to kick the ball back out to you. You know, he's a handy he's a handy lad to kick the ball back out again.
You could do worse. Louise, pleasure chatting to you. Best of luck with the return, and we'll catch up with you again hopefully over the next few weeks.
Cheers. Thanks a million, lads.
Thanks a million. Louise Galvin on the line there, giving us a sense of how the backs might stack up for the game at the weekend, and also her return to the Kerry jersey. It's 17 minutes past 8 on this Friday morning. We've loads more to come, plenty more rugby as well. Company of Philippe Saint-André, just a little bit, and he'll give us the French perspective on things. And Freddie Burns is going to join us on the line as well from Japan, to talk about what a mad week, I presume it's been for his brother, and as well to look ahead to that game this weekend. But right now, just let you know what's happening across the back pages, and first of all on OTBSports.com for you this morning. If you head along there, you can check out the Conor Hourihane interview with Nathan on the football show last night. The inside track on Jack Grealish is just what you need on a Friday morning. Thoughts there about the quality of Jack Grealish. If you get a yellow, he knows he's got you. Plenty of other stuff there as well. New signing for Bose. Fernando Alonso has been hospitalised. That story up there. The Manchester sides in FA Cup, into the FA Cup sixth round, and Shane Carthy as well on mental health recovery. So there's plenty up there. OTBSports.com, and also a good place to go and watch OTB AM live, and also across the back pages then for you this morning in the Irish Times. Needless to say, as the show is this morning, most of the back pages this morning very much dominated by the rugby. Henderson set to replace Ryan, with Ruddock likely to start. That's Jerry Thornley. We've been discussing that a little bit with Alan Quinlan earlier on. Lowe ready to kick on further after his return from injury, and thoughts on England as well. That is in the Irish Times for you. In the Irish Examiner, hunting high and low, LOWE, for small margins, says Ronan O'Gara ahead of the Ireland-France game. Something he would know much about, you would have to say. French wary of outstanding tactician Sexton, says Labite, and that also ahead of the weekend. Some quotes from Conor Hourihane there as well. And offer people hope and open the pitches, pleads Davy Fitzgerald, also there. The BBC under fire as cricket loses out to cage fighting is one of the stories on the Telegraph this morning, as well as Anthony Watson, the England back, hitting back over the row over taking the knee. He was given some abuse, and some of the players were given some abuse for doing that over the weekend, and not all did it in some of the games. Bizarrely, seems like some of the players weren't even aware of the protocol, which seems a touch odd. The Twits, says the back page of the Irish Star this morning, Steve Bruce slams vile online threats. He received death threats over the last while. More of those Conor Hourihane quotes as well there. Mark McCadden on the back page of the Star for you. In the Sun, anti-racism gestures are so degrading. Zaha calls for a real change. Elsewhere in the Irish Daily Mail, Michael Duignan, GA must revert to club first plan. The words of Michael Clifford inside there. And Ireland caught up in taking a knee confusion. More fallout from that, writes Rory Keane there. Also plenty of reaction to Chelsea's win 1-0 over Barnsley in the FA Cup last night. That's included in The Guardian. The Herald, anger at loss of elite status. GA managers confused over government U-turn on return to play, and also looking ahead to the rugby. Quote on the back page of the Mirror: "We hope you die." Toon boss Bruce reveals vile messages from own fans as football comes together to tackle online hatred. That's in the Mirror. The Irish Independent: loss of elite status, a big concern for GA bosses. Colin Keys, Frank Roach and Daniel McDonnell combining to write that piece on the back of the Indo this morning, and also looking ahead to the rugby, of course. That's the back pages for you this morning. And Eoin, you've picked out a couple of stories, I think. Yeah, so the GAA story has been interesting this week. A couple of good pieces on it this morning across the papers. Reading Sean Moran's piece in the Irish Times gives a good sense of maybe some of the confusion that existed in GAA circles. Now, we just heard from somebody who is working on the front line. We heard why inter-county footballers and hurling players can't be put into a bubble, and why you can make a reasonable case to be made that there is far more of a danger about them going back to play at elite level than there is about professional athletes. So I get that. I think everybody gets that. But Sean Moran points out that there were unusual aspects of this official explanation this week, that the suggestion that the exemption for Gaelic games had been granted only for the duration of the 2020 inter-county season and expired after the All-Irelands in December, that this was essentially not very well explained. So the GAA was basically unaware that this exemption was being revoked and not renewed. Like, why, in other words, would they bring out a draft fixtures calendar at the end of December if they knew that they weren't going to be allowed to play football up until now, if they knew that their level 5 exemption was going to be revoked? So there was clearly a lack of correct information or clear information and clear communication coming from government until this week. And that is one of the eyebrow-raising elements of this. No one is necessarily disputing the reasons why the GAA might be exempt. It is when they've come to this decision and when they actually communicated this. Things aren't going to be the same as they were last year, and it's only really become clear this week, I should say, in a sporting sense, that this was going to be the case. You see that he's quoted John Horan speaking that the primary reasons activities had to halt was that county teams weren't able to operate in a bubble, and that the minister had told him that the present elite status categorised was those sports that could operate within a bubble, which just was not the case in 2020. So you can't really blame the GAA for thinking things might have been the same. They'd got their exemption under level 5 in 2020, and they assumed that was going to be the case in 2021. Somebody somewhere before this week should have said, hold on a minute, your exemption is being revoked. That fixtures plan that you've published, hold on a minute, let's roll that back a little bit, because that what you've just done is publish something which is against what the government is planning in 2021. So somebody somewhere just didn't communicate this right. And I guess Sean Moran, the closing line of this piece is the situation is broken and didn't need to be fixed. So he's clearly of the opinion that the 2020 setup was fine and inter-county games possibly could go ahead. But I think the bottom line here is that it wasn't handled in an amazing way, this revoking of the exemption. Yeah, it is incredible, and even the communication around it, and because I remember obviously all the conversations we had last year in relation in the lead into the championship and about as to whether it was going to go ahead or not, and the downsides of it. And I have to say I was dubious that it was all going to go off without a hitch, and it by and large did. I know that the behaviour of the virus changes in society as it's done, and so you can't just sort of rinse and repeat, but certainly it seemed as if whatever was in place last year could do a job again. I mean, for the same reasons that we played it out last year. And you have to maybe you have to go back and you have to reconsult with the GPA in terms of players' appetite, obviously, to go ahead and do that with the change of behaviour of the virus. But I would have thought there was a decent template in place there. But I mean, the communication side of it is, I mean, it's kind of ludicrous that it would be allowed to get to a stage like that. Yeah, a couple of other things then doing the rounds this morning. Maybe let's just go through some of the teams that are being reported. I think the Irish Times last Friday morning had it close to spot on. I've just flicked through the Irish Times and the Irish Independent over the last couple of minutes, and there isn't agreement on the team, but they're both framing their teams as possible teams, and they've both got a couple of 50-50 calls, which they actually haven't
called on paper. So nobody's claiming to have the team this morning. But if we're going to take the common names from it, it's going to be no change to the backs with the exception of maybe at out half. The Irish Independent are saying that Philippe Burns is going to start if Johnny Sexton isn't going to be fit to start. So the Sexton story has not been cleared up just yet. We don't know for sure. And then Billy Burns versus Ross Byrne on the bench is the other question.
Okay, well, we'll keep an eye on that. It's midday, I think, isn't it, or thereabouts, when that team gets named. So we'll keep an eye on that. And stay tuned, by the way, to Off the Ball social channels, and we'll bring you the very latest news just as it lands in relation to that team. But we want to get some of the sense of what's happening at the French angle. Delighted to say that French legend, former France coach, current Montpellier coach, Philippe Saint-André is on the line. Welcome back to the show, Philippe. He's standing by and getting prepped and getting the makeup on and getting ready to come on and tell us. We want to figure out exactly. This might be a short conversation, but like where the weaknesses in Antoine Dupont's game exactly are. We might find all that out in a few minutes, and even listen to Laurent Lebitte during the week about Johnny Sexton, and it's on some of the papers today about how much they rate him as a tactician as much as anything else. You assume that even from an optics point of view, having his name on the team sheet is a big plus from an Irish point of view straight off the bat. Yeah, for sure. It was also interesting listening to Tomás O'Leary on the show yesterday, which people can listen back to, about coming up against a very young Antoine Dupont. I think I think he said his last game for Montpellier was one of Antoine Dupont's first games for Castres. One of his last games for Castres, I should say, and kind of detailing how Ireland probably need to show that bit of grunt in terms of stopping him tomorrow, because he is so good that he's probably going to need to be hit a few times. That's maybe one of the things that you look at in Ireland's back row, and Rhys Ruddock certainly brings that. I know that's why Quinny wanted Ruddock to start last week, was that brute force that he brings in that battle. And there might be a requirement this week to maybe let Antoine Dupont know that you're there, and that may be one of the ways they have to go to stopping him, because the guy is just unbelievably talented. He's possibly the most talented player in world rugby at the moment, and they're just a brilliant team to watch. Like it was an exhibition last week against Italy, but at the same time you think to yourself, Italy could have had 2 or 3 tries. I know, granted, the tries that were ruled out were done so correctly, but the try they scored was magnificent, and there are going to be openings for Ireland on Sunday, I should say. It's just a matter of whether or not they can stop France and whether or not they can keep them to below 20-25 points. Careful now on, because it feels like you're talking yourself into a Wales situation there again, by the way, if this goes on much longer. We might return to that, but I am delighted to say Philippe Saint-André is on the line. Welcome back to the show, Philippe. Yeah, good morning. What are we going to do with Antoine? What are we going to do with Antoine Dupont? He's a great player, you know. He's unbelievable. I think he's class player. He's confident player, and he's a very, very quick player. But I think it's this new French team, you know, with a new generation of players. They won the World Cup under 20. They won with their club in Toulouse and in some other, and it's a big confidence in this French team. But for them, you know, it will be a huge test this weekend to play in Dublin against a great Irish team, you know. Yeah, he Dupont, and like Eoin was just saying there a minute ago, he's seen obviously at the minute is, never mind about one of the best scrum halves in the world, one of the best players in world rugby at the minute, and he helped ruin us with that when we needed that 7-point win to win the championship in Paris back in October. But if you're planning, and you will be at some point soon, against him at club level, Philippe, to counter this guy, what are you thinking? If you're trying to give Andy Farrell, and we're hoping you can give him some advice ahead of Sunday, what are you thinking? I think first things, you must not give some gap around the ruck, because you know he has a very good vision, and he's looking all the time if he can break around the ruck, you know, after 2 or 3 phases. If somebody is very, very quick, and after, you know, when it's a break with the backs, you know, he's very often the first support on the inside ball, and because he smells the line, and he understands very well the game, you know. He's somebody very, very strong. So I think it's the Irish team need to tackle him and keep him on the floor
the more longer possible to be out of action, but this can bring penalty or yellow card. So, but I think for the Irish team, you know, I think you were very unlucky last week in Wales. You took a red card, and against the French team, what is difficult in the French team is that they don't take any risk in their 30 meters. You know, they play a lot of kicking game, but after they are great on the turnover, you know, you have players like Ficou, Vincent, Villiers, Jalibert, Dupont, Penaud. They are quick, they are very, very strong, and they are skillful. So it's a very good French team, very well balanced with the back row, with the front five. I think it's very well coached also by Fabien Galtier and all these assistants. And the confidence is back. You know, in the French team, we had 10 years very, very poor, and now the confidence is back. I will say for the last 4 years, each club in France need to pick 16 French players on the team sheet each week. So our new generation played the top 14, and this is the best thing couldn't happen for the French team.
What other work then went in, Philippe, to creating this golden generation? You mentioned bringing in rules that 16 French players have to be in the top 14 squads. What else happened? What else did you see over the last 10 years that suggested that this golden generation was going to come along?
When I was the coach of the French team, we had a big problem because 80% of the winger was Fijian, and 70% of the prop was Georgian in the top 14. So we said that we need to stop this. So we need to put a lot of money in the club for the formation, you know, to create the next generation, and to bring good coaching in under 16, under 18, under 21. And to be honest, we had a great generation. We won the World Cup under 20 2 years in a row. Then it didn't happen for the French rugby. And also these young players started to have game time in top 14. Then before, they needed to go in second division to have game time. And this makes completely the difference. But also I think this young generation, you know, they work hard about their skills, so they are more skillful than the other generation. And also with the new organization, they have a true break in inter-seasons. When they are with the French team, they are 2 weeks before the Six Nations, so they can switch on about the French team. Then before, it was 1 week French team, 1 week top 14. It was a mess. Then now, you know, the player, or they are focused with the club, or they are focused with the international duty, but they don't go back all the time, you know, to club and international duty, and this is very, very disruptive for the player and for the staffing and for the staff.
Yeah, the just in relation to the Irish team, the two questions I wanted to ask you, Philippe, just about in relation to Johnny Sexton, and first of all about, there's been so much chat obviously this week about his return to play and the head knock last weekend, the comments made in France. Like, what, first of all, before I ask you about those, in terms of we're not sure yet whether he's going to be in the team or not, but the impact on France of seeing Johnny Sexton's name on that team sheet. Laurence Labitte has spoken this week very affectionately about his abilities as a tactician as much as anything else.
I think, to be honest, with this team, the French team, I don't think so. They care a lot, you know, because I think they focus about themselves and they are not focused about the other team. I think it's a change of mentality about this generation. You know me, in the starting 15 this week, I have 3 players from Montpellier: Momo Awas, the tight head; Paul Villemc, the lock, and the center, and you know, Vincent. And when you speak with them, they won't be focused about themselves, about their game plan, about what they need to do. and they don't bother too much about the other teams. So I think Sexton is very important for the Irish team and maybe for the spirit of this Irish team, but this French team, I don't think so they care too much. And after to come back about if he play or he doesn't play, I think Sexton is an amazing player, and if he feel he can play, it's because he's okay, And if the doctor of the Irish team say he's okay to play, for me it's not a problem. The only thing change is in France now with the top 14, when we have one player go out of the pitch for knock-on or a concussion. Is not the doctor of the club are in charge. It's the doctor outside. And now, when we have one guy go out, he's not allowed to play for 10 days or 2 weeks. So it's because the rules are completely different in France than in England or in UK or in Ireland. Then maybe it's a lot of things in the newspaper about this. But you know me, I don't have any doubt if Sexton played this week is because he's 100% and he has the green he has the authorization of the doctor of Ireland, and I think it's not an issue at all,
Yeah, and just given so to ask the second part of that question more generally, Philippe, you've been an elite player, you've coached at elite level, coaching at elite level at the minute, you know this stuff inside out. Do you feel that, looking at the stuff that's come out of the UK, particularly over the last couple of months, is the game at a dangerous moment at the minute, or a pivotal moment in relation to head injuries and the long-term impact of that?
Yeah, to be honest, when you are a coach or a manager, the most important things for your player is the health and the health of the players. You need to look after your players. The players are important to play, of course, but they are important to carry on for the rest of their life and to feel good, And to be honest, I have a young back row play last week, and in the end of the game, he said he had a headache, and Monday he didn't feel good, so we bring him to a specialist of concussion. And now he's out of 10 days, and yesterday I spoke with him, and for me, of course, I need him, but the health of the players is more important than everything, So, yeah. And like you say, with things happening in England, in Wales, and things happening with American football and things like this, we need to be very, very careful, We need to be careful because rugby, it's amazing and we love it, but after you stop to play, you still have 30 or 40 years to live, and the health and safety of the player, for me, is very, very important.
Yeah, paramount. Before we come back to get your prediction for the game, Philippe, I wanted to ask you about, you're not long in Montpellier, obviously, and I think you'd come in just after the loss to La Rochelle, or Ronan O'Gara's La Rochelle, as they've been renamed here in Ireland. From the job that he's been doing there over the last 18 months or so, what's your view? I'm sure you've been keeping a close track on it before you even came in at Montpellier, but what's your view of Ronan as a coach and the style of rugby that he's playing?
Well, I think he's doing a great job. Already he was coaching in Paris, in Racing, after he'd been in New Zealand, and now he's doing a great job in La Rochelle. They are in the top 2 in the top 14. They play a very great game of rugby. They are well organized. They are pragmatic. Also, he managed very well the turnover in this squad, because the top 14 it's a long season, and I think with also all this experience like a player, but also a coach, I am sure that one day he will be back in the settle of the Irish rugby.
Yeah, well, I think that seems like an inevitable graph at some point, and we shall watch that with interest. I should ask you as well before we go, your academies, the PSA academies, people, regular listeners and viewers to the show will be familiar with it. How's all that been impacted by COVID, Philippe? Have you been able to manage to continue to do some level of coaching? Yeah, or where is that at the minute?
I think it was tough. We had last year a lot of camp in Ireland, and I think we just did 2. The other was cancelled. In team, we did 2 weeks last summer, but it worked very, very well. And in England, we did just 1. So we just hope that this summer it will be better. We can organize camp in Ireland, in England, in France, because what is important, we try to have great coach, and also we try to improve the players about to be good on the pitch, but also to be a good man and to be a good boy, and also with a mixed city like in team, we have 12, 13, 14 different nationalities. The mix of all this nationality is great to see, and it's great to coach.
Yeah, people can check out psaacademies.com for more information on that. Before we let you go, very lastly, how many points are France going to win by on Sunday?
2 points. 2 points difference. I think it will be tough, it will be hard, but they are so confident at the moment. I think France will win by 2 points.
Okay, well, we look forward to it, and the pleasure is always speaking with you. Philippe Saint-André, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. It's going to be a fascinating game this weekend. It's 20-9 on OTB AM, and we have lots more still to come. We're going to chat to Freddie Burns in just a little bit to get the view from there, obviously from the Burns household ahead of the weekend, and reflecting obviously on last weekend too. But it is 20-9, watching OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning, start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We've gone from Philippe to Philippe. Good morning to you, Dublin Phil.
Good morning. If my name was Philippe Egan, I'd be a genius. That'd be my big Sam Allardyce kind of take on that one.
Well, look at you've teed us up nicely. After all the fluff of the FA Cup during the week, Phil, I wouldn't have liked to have seen your must-watch of games during the week. We've got a couple of belters this weekend at the Premier League. For your must-watch, might watch and won't watch, is your must-watch only 2 games? Am I reading this correctly?
No, must-watch, I think obviously the City and Spurs game, you've Liverpool, Leicester. Then on Sunday, you've got West Brom with the aforementioned big Sam Allardyce against Manchester United, and then you've got the Arsenal Leeds game as well. I'd probably watch the 2 games on Monday as well become must-watches because there's nothing else on. That's really what happened. And
that's fair enough.
It's kind of like how I approached the FA Cup this week, and yeah, there was a lot of really poor games in the FA Cup, but it was all saved by that Everton and Spurs game.
So talk to us about City Spurs. I've been making the case that Jose is on his last legs. I think the Everton game hammered that home, if anything. What's going to happen here?
I think Jose was loving what happened on Wednesday night, because he basically showed everyone, you say, Jose doesn't play attacking football, he doesn't play expansive football. See what happens when he tries to do it? They concede 5 goals against an Everton team that for a majority of the game were without Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Bernard, a guy that was meant to leave Everton, scores the winning goal. So Jose he'd be rallying the troops, saying, right lads, we're back into the trenches now, sit in and let's just play in the counter-attack. We've beaten City 2-0 in our last 2 games, albeit they were home games. This is a trip to the Etihad. So I think the fact that Kane is back is big for them. But the problem for Jose and the way he wants to play, Jose's success has always been built on a solid defence, and they just don't have that at the moment. He doesn't know what his best partnership is. He doesn't know if he should play 3 at the back or a back 4. His goalkeeper isn't helping him either. So it's very hard for Mourinho. I can imagine how frustrated he is looking at the mistakes that they made the other night to concede 5 goals against Everton, and you would imagine City will just have too much of them in that sense. But you could see, look, Spurs are the last team to beat City, and I have to say that 2-0 win back in November, the 21st of November, which when City lost that game, they were in 13th. 2-0 wins over Pep in his last 2 games, Jose Mourinho. But I think the 2-0 this season was far more convincing than last season. There was a little bit of luck involved in the one last season, Whereas this season, that game in November, Spurs were very solid defensively, but they looked very decisive when they counter-attacked. So he'd be looking for more of the same. But City are a different animal now, unfortunately, for Jose. And look, I don't think if they lose, Jose's under increasing pressure because nobody's beating City at the moment.
Yeah, and conversely, winning the game could suddenly have everybody thinking, like Jose
he's back.
He isn't a busted.
The Mourinho masterclass.
Yeah. I mean, it might buy him some time, I think, is probably what we're looking at here.
Mourinho could look, he could have a conversation with Daniel Levy and say, look, you know, we've played some good football at times this season. We've scored, 6 goals at Old Trafford. When we're good, when we're counter-attacking, but I need a solid defence. So you got to give me a few defenders in the summer transfer window. But the problem is, this is Mourinho's second season. I know he didn't have a full season last season. This is kind of usually the season where things happen for him. The third season, you start getting into that territory of where Jose just starts getting annoyed with everyone. And the signs are there already. The stuff about Gareth Bale the other night. And look, Gareth Bale, it hasn't been good so far. He's only started 2 Premier League games, started 10 games in total since arriving, and 6 of those were in the Europa League. So I can see why Mourinho's frustrated, but this is kind of, the hallmarks are there. When Mourinho starts calling people out in public, it's usually a sign that things are not going well, and it tends to end only one way.
Yeah, and we've seen Jurgen Klopp been a bit touchy with reporters during the week as well, Phil, maybe for reasons more than just football, of course, has been written about during the week. But what Liverpool are we going to see this weekend? What end of the up-down graph are they going to be on against Leicester?
Well, it's hard to know because their last 2 away performances were pretty good against Spurs and West Ham. Now, what I would throw into that was I thought Spurs and West Ham gave Liverpool too much respect. And I think City, what they did so well last week at Anfield, especially in the second half, was they sensed Liverpool are not the same Liverpool. So you don't give them the respect that they would have commanded when they were playing last season or the season before, that they can be got at. Now, it'll be interesting to see what team he picks. He's obviously brought in 2 centre-halves. Neither of them have featured yet. Unfortunately for Klopp, he doesn't have cup competitions where he could throw one of the defenders in, whether it was Davis or Kabak. He's going to have to throw them in a Premier League game. Do you want to do that against Leicester, against Jamie Vardy, who's back, where if you're going to play for Liverpool in a back 4, you're going to play a high line, and it's high-stakes stuff. It's who's going to blink first, because you have to hold the line, whereas Vardy, is going to just keep running in behind you. He'll get caught offside plenty of times, but he'll just keep doing it, and eventually he'll get in. He's got a very good record against Liverpool, and he will be licking his lips at the thought of facing a rookie in that Liverpool defence. And he'll probably licking his lips at the thoughts of maybe facing Fabinho, who didn't have a great afternoon against Manchester City. They definitely targeted him with movement and dragged them out of position, because he is not, as well as he's done as a centre-half, he is not a centre-half. He wants to be in midfield. But look, Klopp is going to have to play one of the centre-halves eventually. He needs to free up Jordan Henderson to play in midfield.
Yeah, I was, and don't judge me, Phil, but I found myself on richardjkeys.com during the week.
That's a dark hole you went down.
Listen, it was in preparation for the show, and viewers and listeners will be able to hear about that coming up in a little bit. And that's my defence. But he was making the case that, he had said previously that it was a 2-horse race, that it was going to be a straight shootout between Liverpool and City for the league. And I think it's clear now it's probably only one, and I mean that in the context of West Brom against Manchester United as well at the weekend. Like, you can't even be guaranteed that United come out of that, obviously, with 3 points.
Yeah, well, look, I think back to the game at Old Trafford earlier in the season. Obviously, Bilic was in charge, and West Brom did enough, I thought, to get a result in that one. They obviously they thought they should have got a penalty that day as well. But it's not working for West Brom, and you kind of wonder how it ends for Sam Allardyce if he does actually end up getting relegated. Is that the end? Because that's the thing he has to cross off his CV. He has to tip exit out, saying never been relegated from the Premier League. And when he got that draw at Anfield, you could see people were thinking, yeah, this is what Big Sam does. It's not pretty, but yeah, he'll keep them up. But the signs are not good. And with Manchester United, one thing they've done relatively better this season, I know that the Sheffield United result was a big shock, but they have beaten those teams down near the bottom that they're expected to beat. And the fact that it's away from home as well, should suit United. And West Brom can't just go there, or can't approach the game thinking let's play for a draw. West Brom need wins, and that will suit United. They should be able to just pick them off on the break. And I know they weren't great against West Ham, but bear in mind Solskjaer made changes. Eventually he brings on certain players to change things up, but yeah, they'll be a bit fresher, and Bruno Fernandes goes back in, and I think United will get the job done, and they'd probably be hoping that maybe Spurs can do them a favour. But yeah, I'd agree with you. I think City are going to win the league. United are well positioned to finish second, and then what happens in the race for the top four is probably going to be the most exciting part of the rest of the season, because the relegation battle looks done, and Liverpool, if they can beat Leicester, they go ahead of them. Chelsea are on the run as well, so I would think maybe out of those three teams, there's obviously only two places up for grabs.
Yeah, and the two Monday games in your must-watch list as well. Philippe, thanks a million. Enjoy the football over the weekend. Will do, thank you. Thanks a lot, Phil Egan there on the line on this Friday morning, 10 to 9. A reminder, by the way, that the best, and if you were tuned in for most of yesterday across OTB, you'd have heard this, but the best golf podcast on the planet is on the move. From March 11th, Golf Weekly is moving to Patreon. And if you sign up, you're going to get guaranteed podcast every Thursday now, and extra episodes as well around the biggest tournaments of the year. There's going to be interviews with golf's biggest names as well. And you'll also become an official friend of the pod. So you'll be able to chat to the lads, Joe, Nathan, Peter, Fionn and friends, get invites to our golf days, enjoy exclusive watch parties on major Sundays, and plenty more as well. Besides, you can head along to otbsports.com/Golf Weekly, and you can sign up now, or just search Golf Weekly on Patreon, and the page is live. And if you sign up now, you won't be charged for February. You'll kick in March. And also, if you sign up now, you'll be able to pick up the Patreon-only watch feature. So the only place to actually watch Golf Weekly, with brand new graphics looking very slick, and all coming your way. Just it's live now, and head along to patreon.com for more details on all of that. Right, it is 10 to 9. We're continuing, we said, we're rugby central here this morning, and we continue very much in that theme, because I'm delighted to say that the former England international, Gloucester, Leicester, Bath, and now playing in Japan, brother, of course, of the Ireland out-half, Billy, Freddie Burns, joins us on the line. Good morning to you, Freddie.
Morning, how are you, lads? All right?
Great, thanks, and thanks a million for jumping on the line. Is he starting this weekend?
I don't know yet, mate. I don't know. I'm waiting for 12 o'clock like the rest of us.
Come on, give us the inside scoop.
No, mate, my lips are sealed. I can't do it. I'll get shot if I say anything. But no, I don't know, mate. I'm out here. The time difference and that, I've kind of left him to it this week. So fingers crossed he gets a chance to sort of bounce back from last weekend, whether that's on the bench or starting or whatever. But fingers crossed he's involved.
Yeah, I'm sure it hasn't been lost on you, and we haven't spoken to you before, and now we have the chance to do that, and like a lot of it is obviously on foot of what happened last weekend, and it's really dominated a lot of the rugby conversation this week here in relation to obviously what went on there. What you said you haven't been speaking to him at all?
Yeah, no, I just dropped him. Obviously, I dropped him a message after the game, and then one sort of midweek just to check in. But having been in a similar situation, a very different sort of context. Mine, let's not kid ourselves, mine is wholeheartedly worse than anything Bill did. So I've been there, I've taken the flak, and I've bounced back from it. So I've just reached out to him, made sure he's all right, and he's fine. And I know that he's just focused on this weekend and getting out there and continuing the form that he's been in for Ulster and for Ireland in the All Nations Cup. So he'll be chomping at the bit just to get out there and do his thing.
What sort of a fella is he, Freddie, in relation to that? We don't know him that well. He's obviously only been over a couple of years. And what sort of fella is he typically around that stuff? Does he take a little bit of time to chew it over and then park it, or does he move on pretty quickly?
I think he moves on pretty quickly. One thing I'd say about Bill is, he's mentally very strong. And like I said, he put his balls on the line at the weekend to go for the 5-metre line, and sometimes in that position it don't go for you. And it's one of those things. It's a test of character. Obviously, he's taken a lot of stick for it, which you're gonna. That's why you play professional sport. Some of it is all right. Some of it's obviously over the line, but that is what it is, and he'll just want to bounce back. So he's a good lad. He'll bounce back either way, and it'll be a great occasion for him this weekend if he can get on the pitch and sort of silence a few critics.
Is that a skill that you can develop, Freddie? Can you get better at blanking out the critics, at having that thick skin? And how do you actually get good at developing that skill?
I think the only way you get good at it is when you're in it. You know, since he's been over at Ulster, he's been on an upward trajectory. He's performed very well. I thought Autumn Nations Cup, I thought he was a real highlight for Ireland, along with Caelan Doris. And you know, you don't see these things happening. You don't see them coming, and they've got a horrible way, especially when you're a fly half and you take goal kicking duties, or you're part of that decision making. They just sneak up on you and they happen. So yeah, you definitely learn from being in it. But that's it. It's happened now. What can you do? You either sit there and sulk and let the armchair critics who are there probably still with half their fish and chips down their face sort of criticise you and get you, or you crack on and realise that you're the one playing in the Ireland shirt and doing a job for your country.
And in the 10 shirt, which is kind of the key part, and you can obviously relate to that quite a bit as well, is that invariably the focus is going to be on you. You put yourself into the spotlight as a number 10, and chances are if somebody's going to mess up in a game, it could be you, because you've got more opportunities than everybody else to be in the spotlight and to, I guess, be the person that costs your team in certain scenarios.
Yeah, I think it's the thing with being a 10 and a goal kicker and all that, it's a closed skill. You know, when a hooker misses a line out, last play of the game, you can blame the line out caller, you can blame whoever. There's people, but when you're kicking at post or going for the corner, you're always going to be the guy to take the flak either way. And one thing I will say is, I salute the balls on the kid for his first Six Nations appearance to go for the 5, because if he puts that ball 10, 15, 20 metres out, he's probably getting criticised for not going for the 5. So, big set on him to go for it, and it just didn't work. So that's that. It's one error. He's been in great form for Ulster and so far for Ireland. So just crack on, and it's a big challenge against France this weekend.
When you're looking at that, Freddie, I don't know if you've rewatched it, but I know I was listening to Ronan O'Gara during the week saying that he wasn't sure looking at it, and there wasn't a huge amount of angles necessarily available at the kick itself, but was it a technique malfunction? O'Gara was suggesting that maybe he got his head up to look at the outcome before he had finished the strike almost. I don't know if you've analysed it in those terms at all. It's your brother, so you may well not have, but I don't know if you had any thoughts about whether it was a technique malfunction or actually just like you say, the first Six Nations game, and maybe the nerves are at you a small bit at that point.
No, yeah, I think it's just a technique thing. I think, you kick a ball, obviously he was off the bench, but normally as a 10, you touch the ball anywhere between sort of 50 and 80 times a game probably. So it was one of those, it looked to me like he just dropped the ball slightly on the inside, and then tried searching for it with his right foot, and that causes the ball to have that slight sort of fade away, and that was it. And at the end of the day, when you're going for a target that small, 5 metres either side, it looks like a terrible kick. So it was an execution thing. He knows that, but he's kicked a million balls and he'll kick a million more. So he'll have plenty of time to bounce back.
Yeah, and like everybody here obviously will be hoping that that's the case, and that he does the stuff for Ireland. What I appreciate that you've got a slight interest in this next question, but there's been so much debate here about who the backup to Sexton is, right? Like, I think there's a feeling that maybe there's 4 or 5 or maybe even more out halves that are at roughly a similar sort of a level, and people are trying to figure that out. What's your take on, given that the position inside out, and your interest notwithstanding, the depth chart almost of the Irish out halves at the minute?
Well, I think it's exactly that. I do think it's I wouldn't say a problem, but you see it with teams that have had a talismanic 10 for so long, and Johnny Sexton has been there for so long. He's such a familiar face and knows the game so well, and is such a quality operator that there's always going to be a little bit of a drop off when he steps away until people get that experience, and that's what you've got at the minute. You've got a lot of fly halves with not a lot of international experience, because Johnny Sexton's been at the top of his game for so long. So it's really up for grabs. I think Bill's been outstanding. I think Ross Byrne obviously plays a very good Leinster team as well, and performs for them. And there's a few other incumbents as well. Jack Carty's still doing what he does for Conor. He scored, I think, was it 25 points in the Champions Cup the other week. So it's great for competition, but I think it's one of those now where in the next sort of year especially, they're almost going to have to nail down who they want to sort of be the successor of Johnny Sexton and give him time and expose him to errors and situations like Bill was at the weekend. So they need that exposure. They need a chance to build. And like I say, for me, from my personal point of view, obviously, I hope it's Bill who gets that chance to keep proving himself.
How much better has Billy got since moving to Ulster and getting more exposure at a higher level?
Oh, unbelievable. And I think, when you see the sort of some of the critical stuff said about him on social media platforms and stuff like that, the kid signed for Ulster 2 weeks after initially talking to him. He was still in contract with Gloucester. It was a move that he had to force his way with Gloucester to be able to make that move because he wanted to represent Ireland and his country and my grandfather's country. So he's gone there. He's grown as a man off the field. He's gone through trials and tribulations with his partner, and he's grown, and he's just gone better and better. And you see him as the heartbeat of that Ulster team, along with John Cooney now. So I couldn't be proud of the way that he saw an opportunity. Because if he stayed at Gloucester, he probably would have been second fiddle to Cipriani and been a frustrated second choice 10 now, trying to find a club somewhere. Instead, he's gone to Ulster. He's grown. When Henderson's not playing, he leads the team out. He's an integral part of that team, and I'm just super proud of the way that he's grown and really grasped what was a tricky situation.
Your dad's father's from Cork. That's the connection?
Yeah. Well, I think he's Dublin or something, mate. It's one of them. We used to go over. We've got plenty of family. We've got plenty of family in Dublin. So they're a bit all over. I know what you Irish are like. You're all over the place, aren't you? So it's quite funny, mate, because I see myself very much as English. Obviously, I know, especially for my old man, with his father being Irish, to see Bill represent the country of his dad, it fills him with immense pride. So, we're very blessed to have been a family that have got that sort of title. But you see it all the time, don't you? You look at the Scotland team at the minute, half of them are English, so don't really matter.
You Irish are all over the place, by the way. It's going to be the quote of the morning, no matter what happens from here on out. So. And mixing up Dublin and Cork is also like the most cardinal sin you could possibly have over here. It's like a Liverpool-Manchester situation. It's
I'm aware from Bill's first interview. I think it's actually was his mistake in his first interview. But hey, he's under the bus enough as it is. Let's not back over him, mate.
Thrown under the bus by his brother again this morning. That is tough.
Yeah.
You're we mentioned at the start you're in Japan at the minute. I don't know what time of the day is it there.
So it is currently 6 p.m. at night. So it's Friday night here. And your first game of the season tomorrow. So nice little rest for me before getting back to work really after 11 months.
Yeah, what's that been like for you? Have you been training away, or what's the situation been like over there?
Yeah, it was good. I got over and COVID wasn't too bad over here, so I got a chance to sort of settle in and have a look around. But it's kind of kicked off in the last few months, so we're under pretty strict rules from the company, not so much the government, because of the chance of games being forfeited, and obviously a lot of the boys in the team work for the company. So if they catch COVID and it goes into one of the factories, it could be quite devastating for the company. So yeah, it's been a little bit tough and maybe not quite the free experience that I thought it would be right now. But I'm here to play rugby and that starts tomorrow. So I just can't wait to get down to what I do.
It's a lot of training and not many games. Is that it? Japanese rugby in a line?
Yeah, it is. It's bonkers over here. Considering the boys, like I say, a lot of the squad work during the day. When you come together sort of late afternoon to train, you run a lot. You do a lot of chin-ups, a lot of press-ups. It's very old school, but there's something quite refreshing about it when you've been in the professional game for so long. So I'm enjoying it. It's an experience, and just trying to make the most of it. And hopefully tomorrow's a good start for me, and I can build from there into the season.
Yeah, the roster of players, like high-profile, absolute world-beater players in their day that are over there at the minute, I think is sensational.
Yeah, no, it's a really growing sport over here. Obviously with the World Cup last year or year before, whenever it was last year. So yeah, no, it's growing. Obviously I'm at a team that currently are in the Challenge League. We were meant to be in the top league, but COVID meant that the league got rearranged and no team got promoted. So we're in the Challenge League. So we've got to try and I think we've got to win 6 games to get promoted to the top league to have a crack at some of the big boys. But in this league, you've still got guys like Quay Cooper, Will Genya, those kind of players sort of applying their trade. So it's getting competitive, but it's certainly different to what I'm used to with the European brand of rugby.
Freddie, I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your experience at test level. I know you've got 5 caps for England, and that's an interesting time. I think they all come under Stuart Lancaster, if I'm not mistaken, and I guess they all come with Eoin Farrell as the immovable object at number 10 as well, which isn't too dissimilar to the Irish situation as you described there a moment ago with Sexton as the immovable object number 10 for Ireland. Well, how do you reflect on that time? Because it seemed turbulent enough from the outside looking in terms of how English rugby was going at that time.
Yeah, I think 5 caps under Stuart Lancaster, you're right, and they were great times. I feel like with Stuart Lancaster, they really missed an opportunity at the World Cup in 2015. Obviously, getting knocked out at a home World Cup in the group stages is terrible. But I felt like England were more worried about image off the field than maybe producing on it. After, especially from what happened World Cup 2011, obviously there was a lot of bad press that came, and Stuart Lancaster was very strict as a coach in how we sort of showed ourselves away from the field, and I kind of feel like that kind of took away a little bit from on the field. And like you say, you saw an opportunity massively missed to build the game in England in that World Cup, and then Eddie Jones has come in and he's a guy who isn't scared to ruffle a few feathers. He's a polar opposite character than Stuart Lancaster, and they've been through their tribulations themselves, but they're a growing squad. I was there when it was quite a young squad, and then Eddie's come in and sort of added experience to that squad by playing those boys and growing them as players. So very different blokes the way it goes, but it's they seem pretty settled at the minute.
What's going to happen in the Ireland-France game this weekend, Freddie? I presume sort of if it is that Johnny Sexton starts, it seems maybe the case, and Freddie comes on with 20 minutes to go and has a Roy the Rovers performance, I presume is your preference. What's going to happen?
Billy Burns drop goal to win it. Yeah. but Billy Burns drop goal to win it, and next thing you know, all those fickle supporters who are giving him stick will suddenly be parading him around on their shoulder. No, who knows? It's going to be a tough task, isn't it? Because that French team, I've got to admit, they're a team that I'd definitely pay a lot of money to watch at the minute. So it'll be interesting. But no, I'm going to go for an Irish win, and Billy Burns to just do what he does, really. He doesn't need to prove anything. He doesn't need to score winning drop goals or do anything like that. He just needs to go out there and be the player that he's been for the last 3 years at Ulster, and he'll be just fine.
He might not need to, but we take it.
Yeah.
Thanks a million, Freddie. Great talking to you.
Legends. Cheers, guys. All the best. Thank you.
Fair play. Thanks a lot. That's Freddie Burns on the line to look ahead to that game last weekend and give us a bit of an insight into what sort of a week it's been for himself and the family and his brother, of course. Been a pretty turbulent week, but you Irish are all over the place, really, I think is my main takeaway, regardless of anything else that happened there over the last 15 minutes or thereabouts. It's coming up on 9:10 on this Friday morning, and a good morning to you wherever it is that you are at. You're watching OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. We have so much more coming up over the course of the day. Just stay tuned to OTB Sports Radio. 1:30, the Paddy Power half hour is going to be live in your ear holes and your eyeballs. And the lads will be marking your card for the weekend with the football ahead and let you know exactly what's going on and what offers good value in the market. Friday night racing with Ger and Johnny from 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock is Team 33, League of Ireland legend. This time it is Roscommon's own John Caulfield, which brings great memories from 2020 from the Mount Rushmore series. 6 o'clock, OTB Gold, Jerry Eisenberg talks Muhammad Ali, and from 7 o'clock it's live off the ball with Ger, so stay tuned for all of that a little bit later, and still plenty to come this morning. We're going to be catching up with Nathan, who was in conversation with Conor Hourihane on the football show last night. That's coming your way from 20 to 10. Well worth sticking around for that. Some great chat and that. The crappy quiz coming your way as well. And we're back after these with the OTB AM Cold Cuts.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the ball.
Very early stages, and here they come again. Chance for McTominay. Oh, he's made it two goals for Scott McTominay inside the opening 3 minutes.
Manchester United will hope to get back to winning ways in the Premier League this Sunday, and we'll have full live match commentary of their visit to West Brom on Off the Ball. Brian Kerr and Stephen Doyle will call the action at the Hawthorns, followed by Stephen McPhail and Nathan Murphy as Leeds visit Arsenal. We'll have all the updates from Andy Dunn at the Aviva as Ireland take on France in the Six Nations. Plus Hector O'Huckagon and Maura Trassamy-Callig will join me on the paper review.
Off the Ball. Don't miss a moment of the action every weekend from 1 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio. Listen live on the OTB Sports app.
Check out the Boyle Sports app today for details on which football match is getting the no-lose treatment this week. Plus, browse through dozens of new player markets, all powered by Opta. Shots on target, left foot, right foot, headed goals, assists and more. See the Boyle Sports app for full T's and C's. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie 18+.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
All right, welcome back. It's 9:10 on this Friday morning, and it's time for our usual Friday slot. No place for hot takes here. Takes that are going to leave you feeling a little bit colder than seeing your team kick the ball 40 yards past its intended target with the last kick of the game. Yes, it's OTB AM's Cold Cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And they're here. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And they're here. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. And they're here. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. They're here. Swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches, swinging punches. Maguire. And they're here. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
All right, it is your top four of stuff that left you feeling very cold from the weekend. In at number 4 this morning, Tom Brady leads the Tampa Bay Bucks to their second ever Super Bowl championship. And what would, of course, a Buccaneer do? Only take to the sea to fling their silver from boat to boat and to lace into the rum like there was no pandemic at all. Anyway, the GOAT had his share, and God love him, the sea legs hit him when he came ashore.
Tom, how awesome was that? Tom Brady, Super Bowl MVP 7 times.
Yeah, TB feeling the after effects there. And look, when the chips are down, you really need your friends to lean on, right? Like, I mean, Alex Guerrero here, you can see the two lads hanging out. Brady's personal trainer, lifestyle guru, and also who's tried his hand at being a fake doctor. He had weird supplements operation which purported to cure cancer and concussions before being shut down by the Federal Trade Commission. But look, whatever gets you through the day, I guess, TB, or through the game, indeed. In at number 3 on this week's Cold Cuts, Keys is back. Yes, Richard has weighed in on the Frank Lampard future Frank Lampard situation. He says on richardjkeys.com, a thought for Frank Lampard, why aren't his representatives speaking to Bournemouth? Maybe they are. I mean, in my view, they definitely should be. It's more twist to that than a post-match Frank Lampard interview, but it is Richard Keys in at number 3 on this week's Cold Cuts. Right, number 2 was last week's number 1, so it's down one place to number 2, but it still gave us loads of great entertainment this week. It was the aftermath of Jern Owen's embarrassing climb down from the Wales are shit and we're going to pummel them take last week, and boy were those Welsh pups happy to dance on our misery. Take Clive Morgan to begin with here. Thanks for helping Pivac's Team Talk, boys. Keep up the good work. Matt took the we're all in it together view. You know, we're stuck with a coach not up to the task, and you're left with a team that deserved to win. We're both shit out of luck. Not quite so collegiate from Jack, who was telling Ger not to talk shit so early. Karma always bites you on the arse. Welsh flag emoji. Gareth went all the way to the 80s. Norway on our ass with your boys took one hell of a beating rant. Who knew, was my main takeaway from this one, that the Duke of Wellington was from Ballybrack? And what accent exactly did he have? We'll more on that in just a little bit. Pretty simple from Jake, by the way. You okay, hon? He asks Ger. Getting Eoin and Ger's names wrong, by the way, was a big theme this week. Gert Gilroy, though, I have to say, was my favourite alongside Eoin with an O-W-E-N, which also appeared regularly. And Eoin was delighted by. And Matt was back, by the way. This guy was not done. You must feel like an absolute massive twat, although now I'll admit that both the Welsh and Irish halves of me wanted Ireland to win, just so Pivac could have had his marching orders. And then Jack took the time away from the schoolyard for this one. Who's the rubbish team now, you stupid bloke? Etc, etc. Even Durston's fine coffee in South Wales got into the action. So our rubbish team beat you, they said. Don't you look like a bell end now? Which one of these three do you think actually sent that? I'm going for the bell end in the middle. After that, we had Bach, who appears to be Irish. He just wants an apology. To the Irish people, that is. Evan sliding into Owen's DMs with this absolute scorcher. Keep your comments to yourself. I mean, it doesn't get any more cutting than that, but we're saving top spot in the number 2 slot to James, who captured it really well. Only read in the voice of Michael D, which I'll leave up to you rather than me. And ending, of course, with condescending wanker, thumbs up. Tough week on.
No, the condescending would be, oh, Wales are great and we really like playing them and this is going to be a really great game of rugby this weekend. Condescending is not, you're rubbish, you're crap and Ireland are going to smash them. Condescending is not what we were. You cannot label us with the condescending tag. Being spectacularly wrong and stupid and feeling like a twat, yes, you can label us with that. Condescending, we are not. Wankers, yes. You stupid bloke, you stupid man, you massive stupid bloke. I mean, this is all great coming from Welsh fans. They had their moment in the sun, and it was fantastic. There was definitely a few voices out there who perhaps should know a little bit better, making very sweeping judgments about what the item is actually intended to be in the first place. I'm all for the Welsh fans coming at us, but for those with a journalistic eye who perhaps took the initial slot as some sort of statement of reality that maybe didn't have any tongue-in-cheek, probably need to wake up a little bit and get a bit of a life, to be honest. But the Welsh fans who slid into my DMs all week, you're very welcome. I love each and every one of you equally.
Right now, one of your siblings is on Radio Wales talking about the impact of social media barnstorm during the week is what's going on. But in at number 1, I mean, what could have toppled that one off top spot this week? Well, we mentioned the Grand Old Duke being a little bit more Walkinstown than Wellington, and who'd have thunk it? Dermot Gallagher is Irish. Well, we had lots of cultural comparisons in response to Diarmuid's appearance with Joe during the week on the football show and off the ball, including generic Cockney geezer here, or Larry from the van. Wayne Ferry points us in the direction of the before and after as the lights go up on Fred Rickwood from Father Ted. Stephen isn't sure if Dermot is more Cumberbatch or Ronnie Drew. Martin Brennan got mentioned a lot. Nobody really, certainly not me, expected Tommy McInerney to make an appearance, but that worked. And remember to look after your carbon monoxide alarm while you're at it. Steve drew the Father Finton stack parallel. I was having that. Richard Chambers, of political correspondent fame, has him down for a double agent. But it was Simon Murdoch who gets the golden whistle. The man's name is Dermot Gallagher, and yet I never once thought he might be from Ireland.
It's amazing, isn't it? If you just pronounce it Dermot and you pronounce Gallagher, how English you can become. That's worse than Gert and Eoin with an OW, I think. Like, what a week. I feel sorry for Dermot Gallagher, really. I can see his predicament. I can't believe somebody from Sky told him to watch BBC News and get your THs right and use that as your outlet. Like, first of all, they have their own channel, but also could a person not just be like, pronounce your THs right, rather than being like, hello, juvenile person over there, here is a children's book that you might be able to understand, give that a look. I don't know, I understand his plight, and I'm happy that we have one more proper Irishman who isn't necessarily an honorary Irishman, he's just an Irishman.
Yeah, this wasn't, I must mention, something that was news to me. I had set up an interview with Dermot Gallagher in Temple Bar about 10 years ago, knowing his Irish connections. I was really excited to get a great scoop. This all would have happened about 10 years ago. And it was all set up. I'd made my way down to the agreed location. Dermot Gallagher never showed up, so, you know.
We can see now why he came in at number 1 of this week's Cold Cuts.
That's it. There was only one for number 1, and that is it for this week's Cold Cuts.
I am flabbergasted. Maguire. And De Gea. Shocking. I'm disgusted. Maguire. And De Gea. Get close to people. Move your feet. Move your feet. Maguire. De Gea. I am flabbergasted. I'm not too happy with all that. No. Maguire. I would be swinging punches at that guy. De Gea. Swinging punch, swinging punch, swinging punch, swinging punch. Maguire. And De Gea. I'm fuming here watching this game of football.
Michael was in touch to say those comments are absolutely gas, starting my day off laughing. Thanks, lads. And if you do notice anything that you think might tickle our fancy for cold cuts in any week, do get them into us as they hit you at any point during the week. It is 9:20 on this Friday morning. Cracking weekend of coverage coming your way across OTB Sports on Saturday, tomorrow from 1 o'clock on the radio. It's a Saturday panel. This is going to be an absolute belter because it's a goalkeepers special, and it's got David Ford, David Priest and Alex Stepney coming your way. That's going to be an absolute belting panel tomorrow from 1:30 on the radio. After that, we're going to be playing out some of the Ireland versus France preview audio that we've been indulging ourselves in this morning and during the week as well. 3 to 5, it's going to be Football Saturday. Stephen Elliott joining John, Dan and Johnny Ward as well. Likely talking points there, obviously, including some reaction to Leicester against Liverpool. The Bale situation at Spurs, the best outfielder goalkeeper cameos. There's been some great stuff on that during the week as well. And Odebeko's West Ham debut as well from an Irish perspective. So loads of good stuff there. Over on Sunday then from 1 o'clock, from 11:30, I should say, before all of that, the paper review going to be in the company of Ireland's greatest storyteller, Hector O'Hugan, alongside Maura Tarasso, Annie Callig. That's the newspaper review on OTB social channels from 11:30. We're going to have updates from the Ireland-France game in the company of Andy Dunn, who'll be at the Aviva. 2 o'clock live Premier League commentary, West Brom against Manchester United with Brian Kerr and Stephen Doyle on that game. And then Stephen McPhail with Nathan are going to bring you from 4:30 Arsenal up against Leeds United. A reminder as well that OTB AM brought to you every morning with thanks to Gillette. Good morning start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Eoin, have a good weekend.
You too. Take care.
Good man, take it easy. We're going to bring you some Conor Hourihane in conversation with Nathan before 10. But right now, the moment you've been waiting for all morning, time for the crappy quiz.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding. September. Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right? I know it's not right. Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz. What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutliest segment on Irish radio. It's the scintillating, it's the stupefying, it's the splendido, no holes barred, crappy quiz. Every Friday, we pit three of the team off the ball up against each other in a quiz of sporting factoids at the end of the week. Allow me to welcome today's contestants. Our first contestant today is still riding high after Robbie Henshaw played well for Ireland last weekend. It's the first good thing to happen to Athlone in about 40 years, and he's not about to live this down. Give it up for Adrian, who's your daddy, Barry.
Yeah, we ran Gary Castle close in the championship last year, and that's probably that's as good as it gets. But yeah, Athlone flying the flag high. Form of his life, I don't think it's an exaggeration. He's playing unbelievably well.
How can he be in the form of his life if, when you think back to the greatest performance any Irish team has ever produced, how did he perform that day? Does that mean that performance could have been even better if Robbie Henshaw had been in the form of his life back then?
Well, what you're talking about is, and I'm not saying it wasn't in great form at that time, but what you're talking about is a one-off performance. I'm not talking about the experience of watching Johnny-come-latelys to rugby, like yourself, Nathan, and just tune in when the internationals come around. And actually, sometimes not even tune in. You just be watching an old sort of bang average Premier League team who aren't even going to make the top four, I'm assuming, when the Ireland game was on. But generally, he's been playing very well for...
I apologise for working on the weekend, Adrian. I know it's not something you're familiar with.
Just saying, your preferences are what they are.
We have a culture war breaking out here on the crappy quiz, football versus rugby, and hopefully it gets determined as this quiz rages on. Our next contestant today is sporting his very Ballyhonest haircut for a very, very Ballyhonest man. It's Nathan Nate Dog Murphy. You're very welcome.
That's it? Didn't put much effort into that, did he?
That's all there is. Well, I had a different intro written, and once I saw the haircut, I was like, that's all there is.
Okay,
let the haircut do the talking.
Thanks, yeah. I'm delighted with it.
First rule of commentary is let the pictures breathe, and we're going to do that today. We're going to let the pictures breathe, and it is a very impressive haircut, I'm not going to lie, considering everything you were up against. A home haircut, and you've got a future in this, whoever did the job.
My wife, she'll be delighted with your compliments on. as always.
Did you is it a 2 on the sides? Is that technically it?
I don't know. You see, it wasn't a proper hair cutting razor that was used. It was a beard trimming razor. So
How did you get the headphones on over all the hair product you have in your hair?
Wow. Well, Tommy,
getting them off is the issue.
Do you want me to send you some? Because that ain't the Tommy Rooney I see on Instagram every weekend.
Hey.
Our last contestant today was gifted a free point 2 weeks ago by Jojo on Sound, and last week was screwed over by Jojo on Sound, who did not play the rapid fire ticker, so there was all the time in the world for him to completely bottle the rapid fire round. Back for another fumble with glory. It is the Meath Hillbilly, Tommy Rooney.
Hi lads, just on that, going back to last week's quiz, there's a couple of comments that came in on last week's YouTube.
Oh yeah, because we're now reading YouTube comments out in there, are we? I'll give you a few more YouTube comments, Tommy.
I'll start off with Cam 6511. Nathan is the real king of Ballyhonus. Fair enough. We'll move on to Pewtree Dog. I do a better job than this Jojo fella. Jojo, that's pretty harsh, but you better not hit the buzzer wrong this time. 710. Tommy said Nathan's first question was easy, but didn't know the answer. Bluffer. This game is all about bluffing. 710. Tim Cotter says, get Nate Dog, Gilroy, Tommy, and who's your daddy next week on the show? So, that's work. But this is the reason I'm reading these comments out. Aidan Larkin pointed out, and this one's got 4 likes. A 2-point swing on the questions asked after the timer in the rapid fire round went. Tommy, you were robbed.
That's got 4 likes, meaning that, like...
To your point, but sure... It's the same as any sport. Like, if the whistle was blown at 70 minutes, Mayo would have about 6 All-Irelands now. But
see, the issue isn't with the whistle. It's with the man chairing it. It's with the fella who's sitting in with the big red mic in front of him. There's an agenda going on here, Eoin.
I was just about to say that I actually preferred the thuggish, successful Meath psyche rather than this pathetic, looking for excuses Meath psyche, which has infiltrated every element of your county's being. Yeah. And we're seeing it manifest in the crappy quiz.
It's really no wonder Andy McEntee hasn't given you the call, is it? With this sort of bitching and whining and moaning. Imagine Tommy in the Meath squad. Andy, look at this on the Meath message board. They said Tommy should be starting at full forward. It got 4 likes. Out of here.
Gemma Rooney there.
That's it. Yeah. Thankfully, it's 3 versus 1. Overruled is the official decision this morning. As ever, the format is the classic crappy quiz with a series of questions on different themes. Then onto the slip and slide of trivia, which is the rapid fire round. You can podcast the crappy quiz on the OTB Sports app. You can give us 5 out of 5, even if that doesn't represent your actual opinion on other apps. And please send any questions you have via Twitter DM. Round 1 is the boring questions round. Never multiple choice. Question 1 for you, Adrian. Scottish rugby is on a high after stuffing England in Twickenham last Saturday. But can you tell me which current Scotland player is the only one in their top 10 most capped players?
Ooh, for a second I thought this was for Nathan and I was going to give out.
Why?
Because you get it.
Oh, wow, geez, that is a dig and a half.
Would Football Man beat Adrian at his own sport? This is your specialist subject, Adrian.
Yeah, you just pointed that out.
All times capped Scottish players, definitely. Yeah.
You once watched a Pro 14 game involving a Scottish team. You're mad into it.
It's not a trick question, Adrian. That's how you should approach this.
Going to go with Stuart Hogg.
Boom, correct. Stuart Hogg is correct.
That's the easiest bloody question there's ever been.
Come on, Adrian. Well done. Who's your daddy?
My first point in about a month, Nathan. Get over it.
Give me, what were the alternatives? Johnny Gray.
No, it wouldn't be Johnny Gray. Jesus.
7th on the all-time list, Stuart Hogg. Well done, Adrian. I'm delighted for you. Question 1 for you, Nathan. Nathan, name the youngest Golden Boot winner in Premier League history.
Michael Owen.
These are too easy. Too easy. This could be the easiest boring questions round of all time. Very, very quick there off the buzzer for Nathan. 2 from 2.
No
lads.
point overthinking it.
Tommy, only 3 artists not from the United States have played the Super Bowl halftime show in the last 10 years. The Weeknd is one. Can you name either of the other 2?
I was going to say, you've given 2 easy questions to the lads. and you've hit me with a tough one here, but it has to be Shakira.
Correct. We are 3 from 3. Well done. This is it. This is the happy version of the crappy quiz where there's going to be less complaining because everybody's just going to score full points.
Great. Well done, Tommy. Great answer. Well done, Nathan.
What was that question again?
Well done, everyone. Name somebody not from the United States who has performed in the Super Bowl halftime show in the last 10 years. Round 2.
I'll be honest, I nearly lost that one with Blind Rage, and then I went, take a breather, relax.
Coldplay.
So maybe I should just relax here. Maybe I should just take a breather and just try and get through the quiz.
Coldplay was the other alternative that you could have gone for, which also would have scored you the point. Round 2 is the Vive la France round, ahead of Ireland's clash with the French this weekend. This round will remind us of the sporting prowess of France. These questions you'll find are a little tougher. Question 2 for you, Adrian. Riders from which country outside of France have racked up the most Tour de France wins?
Oof. I mean, the most overall Tour de France wins.
General classification.
Yellow jersey.
Yeah. Well, it could
Maillot
be...
jaune.
It could be Spain.
Could be.
That is certainly a country.
Stop trying to tempt Jojo into hitting the buzzer. So you claim that wasn't your answer.
Adrian deserves one, in fairness. He deserves one.
Obviously, the Brits have dominated over the last few years, but it's probably not them overall. Could be the Italians.
Also a country.
Come on.
Come on, we're going to have to push you for an answer here. This is ridiculous.
I'm going to go with, I think, Adrian on his own won about 47 of them. So I'm going to go with Spain.
No. Good thinking, though. If you thought of Eddie Merckx, you probably would have got it. Belgium is the answer.
I never would have got Belgium, to be honest.
Good luck.
Question 2 for you, Nathan. Only one French tennis player has won a Grand Slam since Amélie Mauresmo won 2 majors in 2006. This also came in the women's section of the tournament. Who is it?
Oh. So I'm presuming Mary Pierce was before Amélie Mauresmo.
I was watching Pointless the other day, right? And I'm Nathan, I'm buying you a bit of time here. A question came on, and the person who was answering it cycled through 15 answers that had nothing to do with the question at all, just to prove how much he knew. Guess who the first name that came into my head was?
Somebody who knows a lot.
You.
Give me the question again.
Only one French tennis player has won a Grand Slam since Amélie Mauresmo won 2 of them in 2006. So who's the most recent French Grand Slam player? And it isn't Mauresmo.
That's exactly who he is. I can just picture Colin Boog streaming at the screen here.
Boom. Marion Bartley.
Way, well done.
Well done.
It's a good answer. Wimbledon 2013. Marion Bartley.
Mary Pierce, if you thought you were getting there.
No. Do you know? It's not how I got the final answer. Do you know how? I was watching the Question of Sport last Friday, and a similar-ish question came up, and I just remember they mentioned Amélie Mauresmo, but I'm fairly sure someone said Mary Pierce won it before Amélie Mauresmo, and otherwise I would have gone for Mary Pierce.
Who are the captains now on Question of Sport?
Still the same. I just started watching it. It's nice Friday. Family entertainment. Sit down with the lads.
Tough
numbers. Yeah.
But they're finishing up. This is the last series, as far as I know.
And is Sue still presenting?
Yeah, but this is Sue's last series.
Right.
It's the production of it is too slick now. It's not.
Yeah.
It looks like a big sort of sterile studio. It's too slick.
Well, they have to sit 2 meters apart, so it is a big sterile studio.
I mean,
it's exactly what they want. Exactly.
You never know, boys. The BBC could be on the lookout for a new quiz.
No, they don't.
Yeah, God, that'll be class.
They have their.
Owen could be the new Sue Barker.
Yeah, that's definitely going to happen. Question 2 for you, Tommy. I'm sure Tufnell and Dawson are watching this, trying to get their answers for next week's quiz as well. Good afternoon to you both. Question 2 for you, Tommy. Name the last French footballer to finish in the top 3 in the Ballon d'Or vote. He's also the most recent top 3 finisher in the FIFA equivalent.
Right.
Ooh.
This is kind of this is a messy one. Damn.
There's a messy one.
Could you give it to me one more time? Because I feel like there's a quirk in the question that I got to hear it one more time.
Name the last French footballer to finish in the top 3 in the Ballon d'Or.
There's a quirk in there somewhere.
Gold, silver, or bronze winner?
The main quirk being you don't know the answer.
Thierry Henry.
No, it's not Thierry Henry.
It's not Zidane, is it?
No.
Paul Pogba?
All right.
No.
Mbappe?
Antoine Griezmann.
Griezmann.
Zidane is the last Ballon d'Or winner from France, but Griezmann is the last one to finish in the top 3.
And was Henry ever in the mix? No.
Henry finished second, I think, to Zidane.
Yeah.
He definitely finished second one of the years.
So I would have been wrong anyway if Griezmann hadn't been.
Oh, no, you were definitely wrong.
You were wrong 100%, yeah. We move on. You're on 1 point. Adrian, you're on 1 point. Nathan, you're on 2 points. As we move on to round 3, which is the very memorable red cards round. After Peter O'Mahony sending off in Cardiff, this round will test your knowledge of other famous red cards. We'll give you a famous game, and all you got to do is tell me who got sent off. Adrian, who got sent off in a quarter-final of the 2010 World Cup?
Nigel de Jong?
No, you rushed in there.
It was England. Was it in England?
Wayne Rooney.
It wasn't England, was it?
No, Wayne Rooney was 2004 European Championship.
I wouldn't be giving away all your thoughts here, lads. This is
But it's over. You got it wrong.
2006.
No, but there's more similar questions to come now.
You actually could have given me 2 answers. The main one is Luis Suarez. His handball against Ghana was in the 2010 World Cup quarter-final. Also, Felipe Melo got sent off for Brazil in a quarter-final. If you had somehow given me that, you would have also got the point. You might have given me 2 points for that. Nathan, who got sent off in the 2004 Munster hurling final?
Okay, let's call a timer here.
Yeah, timer, come on.
You know, the radio is going to go off.
Obviously, somebody well known.
These are all famous red cards. The very memorable red cards.
Come on,
stop
giving him hints. He either knows it or he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't know it.
No, it's not Donovan.
Alasby County.
John Milan.
It's John Milan.
I was going to say John Milan, and then I was thinking, it's too long ago.
Tommy, big opportunity for you to draw level with Nathan here.
Massive chance.
Who got sent off in the 1995 All-Ireland football final?
It's a 14-yard free. Why am I getting an easy? Charlie Redmond.
Well, I thought they were all easy. That's the thing.
That last one.
I thought they were all easy.
To be fair, sorry, hang on a second. Any arbiter of all that's right would know straight away those last 2 questions were infinitely easier than that question I got asked.
The 2010 World Cup is remembered for Ghana's tears and nothing else.
Yeah. John Milan saying "I loves me county" is an iconic cultural moment in this country. Charlie Redmond staying on the pitch after he got sent off is an iconic cultural moment in this country. Luis Suarez is not on that level. I'm sorry.
You got screwed.
Luis Suarez is more iconic than both of them.
It's true. Luis Suarez was the easiest one there. Tommy was 2 when the Charlie Redmond thing happened. And I would actually say the John Milan thing was actually the toughest question there because it's more the interview that's famous than the red card.
Yeah. But you know the red card because of the interview.
We can all picture that. I can see Milan walking off the field up there.
Round 4 is the Fun Free Magic Number round. So if you're new to this, contestants get 3 points for getting the number exactly right. And if no one manages that, the nearest contestant who doesn't go bust gets 2 points. And then the second closest gets 1 point as well. So I'm going to say that we can only accept the answer that's written on your paper. I'm also going to have to ask for your pens once the music ends. So if you don't mind, give us the following number. The number of career goals Zlatan Ibrahimovic has now scored after his latest milestone. Jeez. Plus the number of Super Bowl rings now won by Tom Brady. Plus the squad number Phil Foden wears at Manchester City. Plus the number of times Ireland have been shown a red card in the Six Nations. Your 30 seconds expire when Sinatra sings Bright Shiny Beads.
Oh, Jesus.
What was the first question?
How many goals has Zlatan scored at club level? He reached a big milestone this week. How many goals has he now scored at club level? The number of Super Bowl rings Tom Brady has now earned. The squad number Phil Foden wears at City. and the number of red cards Ireland have been shown in Six Nations history. Pens down, please. Adrian?
233.
Nathan?
I've gone way. What was I thinking? 556.
556. Tommy?
Well, I just want to be clear that the answer before Zlatan's goals is 52,
Whoa.
and I went with
No,
4.
give your answer.
Give us the number.
452.
Nathan, you're going to be kicking yourself. It's 555. Nathan went one over. 555. And Nathan went 556.
Oh my God.
That would have been one of the best 3-pointers ever.
Has Zlatan not got 501 goals?
No.
Oh, because he scored twice the other night. I just have it down as 500. I will do
You're a disgrace, Eoin. You are a disgrace.
One of the greatest.
Two weeks in a row he's done this.
All time.
Let me just...
Let's just check this now. Come on. I don't know if that's true. That was a Hail Mary from Nathan.
Oh, I'm sorry. 556 is bang on the money. Zlatan Ibrahimovic continues to defy the aging process as the 39-year-old striker scored a 501st goals of his career. I apologise, Nathan.
That is one of the great answers.
Eoin is VAR, by the way. He's the human embodiment of VAR. He's just your whirly goal from the halfway line. He spoiled it.
No,
VAR. Well done, Nathan. Very well done.
We arrived at the right decision eventually. So Zlatan's got 501 goals now for in his club
I was
career.
starting to doubt myself because I was thinking 501 goals. If you divide that by 20 seasons, there's an awful lot of goals a season. But yes, clearly he's done that.
Tom Brady's got 7 Super Bowl rings. Phil Foden wears 47.
44. That's where it was at.
Ireland have only one red card in Six Nations history, which brings the total to 556, which gives Nathan a score of 5 points.
Did you have all those correct, Nathan?
Yeah. Does it?
Oh,
yeah, it does, yeah.
So, and you doubted yourself. You doubted yourself there at some point.
No, I doubted myself about I was like, I knew I'd seen that he'd got 501 goals, but then I was thinking, 501 goals is a hell of a lot of club goals. But
we just call it like
he's an old man.
My apologies. Nathan, you're on 5. Tommy, you're on 2. Adrian, you're on 1. And we're on to the final. Our winner tonight will be decided in the round that separates the men from the boys, the Paul McGraths from the Paul Mescals. It's the no theme in particular, ridiculously easy rapid fire round. The score you get in this round will be added to your score in the previous round, and there will be 40 seconds for everyone to answer from the same set of questions. We're going to start with Nathan, then on to Tommy, then on to Adrian. And if you get a question correct, I'll keep asking you questions until you get one wrong, at which point you get deducted 1 point.
Can I just make one request before we start on?
Here we go.
So, because he's so far ahead, what you're going to see here is stalling, right? He's going to go, and he's going because he's so far ahead.
As everybody does every week when they're thinking of the answer.
So I'm only asking one thing. It's rapid fire. Can we rapidly fire through them?
Yes, rapid fire. You got through the questions last week, Eoin, and you gave us 2 after the timer, so Nathan could rob me.
Let's get
Give us all the
right
questions
today, Jojo.
Get through it. Come on. Come on, Eoin.
Thank you for your contributions. We will do all of that. Nathan, you ready?
You put together a great quiz so far.
Thank you, Tommy, actually. Yeah.
Don't let yourself down here, man.
God, we might actually leave that timer just roll it a little bit at the end. Nathan Murphy, your 40 seconds starts now. What Australian team is Rob Kearney signed up to play for?
Western Force.
Correct. And what club does Antoine Dupont play for?
Toulouse.
Correct. In what year did Tipperary last win a hurling All-Ireland?
2017?
No, 2019. Denis Shapovalov plays what sport, Tommy?
Jesus, tennis.
Correct. What was the last club Sam Allardyce managed before West Brom?
Stoke.
No, Everton. Liverpool signed Ben Davis from which club last week, Adrian?
Luton.
No, Preston. Hull City play their football in what division, Nathan?
League One.
Correct. Xavi is managing a club in which country at the moment? Qatar. Correct. 8-2-0. Nathan Murphy does it again.
Well done.
Let's play the music for Nathan.
Play that funky music.
I deserved it, to be fair, having got that.
Is this new music?
If I had gotten Sam Allardyce, if I just got Big Sam, I'd have got
been a very different outlook. The floor is yours, Nathan. Say whatever you like in victory.
Camp. Back. Apparently there were some quizzes at the start of the year that I wasn't involved in. They are null and void, I think. It's fair. It's like having an All-Ireland Football Championship and Dublin not being involved is the same thing beforehand.
I get a bit of stick for complaining on this quiz, but if Nathan hadn't correctly complained about the quiz master's misappropriation of numbers in the numbers round, he would not have won this quiz. So you have to complain. You have to question everything.
Well, I didn't complain. I pointed out that he was wrong. There's a difference. You're just bitching and moaning.
You could have kept your mouth shut. You could have said no.
Why would I do that when I knew I was right?
I don't know.
Get the answers right, Tommy.
Of the quiz.
Get the answers right.
Mr. Pointless over here.
You know, turn up. When are we getting Gilroy in?
I turn up every week. I turn up every week.
Next week. We will have him back next week for a heavyweight clash, and we look forward to that. So join us then next week. Congratulations once again to Nathan Murphy.
Thank you, Eoin.
Adrian.
Well done, Jojo. Good job.
We'll see you next week.
Chris Waddle.
Oh, you're kidding me.
September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know it's not right.
Anybody else? Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
He can work on, or is that actually just the way the game is, that teams set out, they know if they're going up against Aston Villa, if you stop Grealish, you're going a long way to stopping them, and that he comes in for a little bit more rough treatment than other players might?
There's probably a balance to it. I think probably pinpoint it. A lot of managers, in press conferences and all the rest of it, speak about Jack openly and how good he is. So if they stop him, they find that it's a good chance to take points off the team, because he's such a vocal point for the team and for the club. Another thing, me knowing Jack, I suppose, without giving too much away, is that if he yellow cards his opponent, he's got you. I know that's a little secret of his. Early fouls, I know defenders and people who are marking him like to kind of let, the old school way, let him know early that you're in for a game, but he loves that. He thrives off that, and he plays the game a lot as well to know, like, if this player up against me gets a yellow card, or if the referee's onto him, to be careful. He's got you exactly where he wants you. So I think there's a fine balance of Jack being a very smart player, and the opposition kind of letting him know he's in for a game as well.
I sense you've learned your lesson when it comes to talking about Jack Grealish, that he's headline news, so anything about Jack Grealish is going to make waves. So if I ask you, could he play at a top 6 club? Should he go during the summer? What are you going to say?
No comment. Nah, listen, Jack, like you said, Jack's an unbelievable player with top talent, and he's a good friend of mine. Which is, like I said, I've been very fortunate to play with a player of his ability. But let's just say he's one of the best in the league at the minute, and his natural ability and the way he's performing at the minute is at a top level.
It's going to be a bit of a sickener during the summer watching England at Euro 2020 with Declan Rice and Jack Grealish possibly in the middle of midfield.
Yeah, listen, I know, but listen, that's life sometimes, that's football. It happens, and more luck to the both of them, they're both playing at a top level at the minute, so, fair play to them.
How do you feel talking about Villa? Because you are still technically an Aston Villa player, you're on loan at Swansea. Do you see yourself going back to Villa at the end of the season? Have you thought that far ahead?
Yeah, and I suppose it crosses your mind, of course. Listen, I'm going to have to go back first and foremost. I've got a year left on my deal, and we'll just see what happens. Listen, my thought process was going out, playing some football, and getting myself in the best position possible come the summer. I was desperate to go out and play. I probably had lost that little bit of purpose of going into training, because me being me and the mentality I have towards the game and the character I am, I'm one of the first in, last out every single day. I work my backside off to try and make the absolute utmost of my career. And when you go in every day and train to high standards and try and improve yourself every single day, and come a Saturday or come a Friday or a Monday or whenever the game is, and you're sitting on the bench, it's tough. It's not easy. So, I wanted to do everything I could possibly do to get out and play, and we'll see come the summer. And like I said, hopefully it will be a successful one, and I'll reevaluate everything in the summer.
Not every player would think about it like that, though. A lot of players would think, I'm in the Premier League. The route you've come through League 2, League 1, Championship to Premier League. You're 30. a chance may come to play in some of the big games, a couple of injuries here and there, you're on a good wage, why not just hang around? Why not just hang around? Was that part of your thought process at all, that, listen, I could just sit this out till the end of the season? There are no Euros, unfortunately, and see what happens?
Yeah, it would have been the easy option. It definitely would have. I wasn't really interested in the easy option, if I wanted to, truth be told. When I growing up as a footballer to dream of playing in the Premier League or to dream of making a career for myself, my dream was never to get up, train Monday to Friday and be on a bench on a Saturday. I just don't see I can't connect with that. It's just not me. I've no interest in that. So yeah, I could have sat around. I just had a newborn baby with my partner, only 8 weeks old. So the decision to leave made it a little bit tougher as well. But no, it's the only thing I wanted to do is go out and play. Dropping down the league, I had no problem in doing that. I dropped down to League Two to make a career for myself. So that didn't faze me whatsoever. And I wanted to put my reputation on the line. Like I wanted to show people what I'm all about. Don't forget about me. I'm not a squad player in the Premier League. I want to be a mainstay in a team trying to achieve something. And I'm excited for the months ahead.
Did you enjoy playing in the Premier League? I mean, the actual games when you're on the pitch. Is it as enjoyable as you had imagined it would have been when you were working your way up, or is it just so bloody tough?
Yeah, of course I enjoyed it. I tried to enjoy it as much as I could, but the type of guy I am, being there, I wanted more, and I wanted to play more, and I wanted to achieve more. So it was hard to enjoy it. Probably something I'll enjoy a little bit more when I finish and I look back and say to myself, oh, I managed to play in the Premier League and score a couple of goals in the Premier League, and it's something I'll take huge pride in looking back on. But I enjoyed some games and some I didn't enjoy other games because I might have done well in some games, not so well in other games. We won some games, we lost some games. So it was a mixed bag, to be honest with you. So huge pride in being able to say that I got to the Premier League, but something I'll probably look back on with a little bit more pride, like I said, when I'm finished, because I've got a goal now and a hunger to try and get back there. Yeah,
rightly so. And I think the last time I spoke to you was just before football restarted, and you got back in the Villa team. You were in the Villa team for the majority of games towards the end of last season. I think you played the Final Four, started the Final Four when Villa got the points to survive. You started the first couple of games of this season, were playing well, got yourself a goal. And then Ross Barkley arrives in and you're out of the side and you never really get back in again. And I know every player says they love the challenge of new arrivals and you need that for a team to keep progressing. When you're the one who misses out, do you realise very quickly, maybe my face doesn't fit the way it once did?
Yeah, possibly. And I suppose that's the reality I had to kind of face up to. And I've I don't hide away from honest conversations. I don't hide away from facing the facts, and I knew that. I'm a 30-year-old, just turned 30 in Feb, and I know the game, and I know when it's kind of your time maybe to move on and try and play somewhere else. And I think I came to that stage at Villa right now anyway. Who knows what will happen in the future? Club spent a lot of money on Ross, and he was going to play for the near future. So I just thought it was the right time to go, right time to move on, get a fresh challenge. Challenge myself to see what I'm all about and get a run of games, and just to give myself that little bit of belief moving forward that I'm still here and I'm still here to hang around and to make a difference. And like I said, it probably was the right time to move on, and the club probably recognised that, and they've probably seen it from a good opportunity for me to go play games, add value to myself from a business point of view for Aston Villa come the summer, and let's just see what happens.
How does it work out then when you decide and the agreement is there that Villa are going to let you go on loan? Does the agent just put out the feelers? Did you have a few different options before you settled on Swansea?
Yeah, I suppose the agent goes to work then a little bit, and you've got your fingers crossed that there'll be a few takers first and foremost, because you put yourself out there to the club that you want to leave. And in a pandemic, when money's a little bit scarce for some clubs, you hope that something comes up. And listen, luckily enough for myself, there was a couple of things on the table, and you go talking to a few people and a few phone calls get made, and I felt like it was the right fit here. The manager told me, where he saw me fitting into the team, as we said on the start of the call, further forward, that license to get forward, conducting myself at the top of the pitch, and that kind of fitted the bill for me. And the club have been fantastic, and the manager's been fantastic to to make sure it's, worked for me so far. And so far, so good. It's been a good fit.
Yeah, they're a club who've been a Premier League side, a very good Premier League side over the last decade as well. And you're not going to a Championship team who are mid-table, who are sort of cruising along. Like, they're right there in the mix for promotion right now. So you're going into a pretty pressurised scenario. Yeah, and that was something that I wanted to do. I didn't, I suppose motivation was a little bit of where I wanted to go. I didn't want to go to, a middle of the road Championship club, where later on in the season maybe 3 points aren't as important to the club. I really wanted to go to somewhere that was looking to achieve something, looking to get promoted, and get involved in a group that were hungry to get back to the to the top level Premier League. So when Swansea came along, and we were second in the league at the time, we're third now. 3 points on a Saturday or whatever night the games may fall are so important to us right now, and it's something that I'm excited by the challenge, and bring on the next couple of months. I'm really excited by it, and let's see what happens, really. You sound like a man who is at a stage where you probably realise that this isn't going to last forever, and that you want to make the most of whatever time you have as a footballer, because Swansea's a good trek from Birmingham. You mentioned you just have an 8-week-old child, and I know the last time we spoke, there was a lot of COVID difficulties around that. Everybody had to get on board with this, that it's not the easiest decision to go to Swansea. No, it wasn't an easy decision, but like you just touched on there, your career doesn't last forever. Some lads, you get to a certain age or a certain time in their career where they might not be interested to go on loan. They're happy to sit around, but I've just turned 30. I've got 2 children now, and I wanted to go out and get myself, like I said earlier on, in the best position possible come the summer, for them more than anything, So I suppose there was a lot of reasons to take to try and get out and to try and play. Listen, like I said, I probably have 3-4 more years, I feel like, hopefully at a very good and top level. And I really wanted to make the most of it. I'm hungry for more. I'm always hungry for more. It's just something that's ingrained in me, and I really wanted to make the most of the next 3-4 years of my career. And it started by getting out on loan in January, and I'm really looking forward to the time ahead now. If Ireland had qualified for the Euros, there probably would have been far more Irish players moving in the January transfer window, desperate for game time to make sure they were in the squad. But there are still big, important games coming up next month at this stage, the start of the World Cup qualifiers. Was that a factor at all in your decision? Yeah, 100%, without a doubt. I feel like I've got my foot in the door now, in the Ireland squad and at that level. And it's something that I didn't want to lose, and loosen the grip on. Like you said, your career doesn't last forever, and playing for Ireland is such an amazing feeling, putting on that green jersey and going out and playing there for out at the Viva or wherever it may be, and playing for Ireland. So it's something that I wanted to keep hold of for the next few years, without a doubt. It was in the back of my mind that if I didn't go out and play between January and the summer, come March, I probably would have been in the squad, but would I have been one of the names on the team sheet? Probably not, maybe because of my fitness. It wouldn't have been up to scratch. So that was another big factor why I wanted to go out and play, be match fit, hopefully be in good form come March, and hopefully be in amongst the squad and fighting for a place in the starting team. It's hard to know where to start with the national squad, because so much has happened over the last 6 months on and off the pitch. On the pitch, the disappointment of the Slovakia game and not qualifying for the Euros, how did you deal with that? Yeah, it was a huge disappointment. That's one goal that I really want to achieve before I retire, is get to a major tournament with Ireland. Another chance for that starts in March, but getting so close, and to be knocked out through penalty shootout, I suppose. I know we had another game to go if we got through in that, but it wasn't easy. I suppose I took a little bit of blame for myself. I'm my own worst critic, and I know I should have scored in the game. So that was a tough one to take, no doubt. It would have been great to get through, to the final and then get onto the major tournament, but it wasn't to be. But I felt like that was a very good performance and positives to take from the team. From the night, we played well, and obviously after that, things obviously haven't gone to plan. So it's kind of hard to look back on that night and take positives from it now, because there's been so much happened since then. But
I suppose, it was hugely disappointing, like you said, but hungry for more and hungry to try and achieve more, to try and get to in a major tournament really over the next few years.
A moment like that missed opportunity, because it is slowed right down and it's replayed again and again. Is it like that in your mind? Is it something that vividly you remember the moment and the chance and what could have happened, what you felt you should have done? Is it something that stays with you?
Yeah, listen, I look back and think about it. I suppose, I wouldn't say every day, but a lot of time, I see it come up on social media, or, when I meet up with the Ireland team again, it's probably more fresh because I'm in around the environment again, or whatever. But I brush myself off and crack on. And listen, I'm sure happier days will come, and hopefully sooner rather than later. Getting into them positions, we've probably struggled for goals. Scoring a few for Swansea will only bring confidence to try and do that the next time we meet up. So, yeah, it was disappointing, but I see myself as a strong, character and mentally, really, strong from that point of view. So I brush myself off and crack on.
Is international disappointment a totally different feeling to club disappointment, when, as you say, it's probably different now in COVID times because you're not seeing your family as much, you're not seeing your mates as much, but it means so much to them as well for Ireland and for you to be successful?
Yeah, so there's a different feel to it, of course, because you're connected to, Ireland and family and friends, obviously a lot more than maybe club, than maybe a homegrown player, say like a Jack, or maybe a homegrown player from Swansea. Listen, you buy into it, of course, and you're really attached to it emotionally, and your family are as well, of course, but obviously being born and bred Ireland and born and bred Cork man, there's that much more love towards it, I suppose. And it wasn't an easy time. It wasn't, it's been tough few months to play for Ireland. There's no getting away from that, but hopefully now come March, there'll be a somewhat fully fit squad, and we won't have as much bad luck as previous, trips with COVID and whatever, and hopefully we can move forward and start a new campaign in a good way come March.
You must have been the only one who didn't have any COVID issues.
Yeah, I've been fortunate, I suppose. I had it back in April, right at the very start. So, when everything kind of stopped, football stopped, and all the rest of it. So, I kind of had my time back in April with it, and we've had tests since, and I've, I suppose need to come back. I've got the strong antibodies or whatever. So, I've been one of the fortunate ones, I suppose, that I haven't missed football from it, and hopefully, touch wood, that's the case moving forward. Yeah, and
have you had any long-term effects at all from it?
No, I've been fine. It was literally back in April when it first started to come out, I suppose, and I was getting a lot of headlines, obviously, because football was stopping, and I just had no taste or smell at the time. But luckily enough for me, I recovered fully, and I was okay.
Good stuff. You mentioned the Slovakia game and actually the performance. That was probably the best performance so far of the Stephen Kenny era, and maybe the only one that it's really fair to judge upon, because there were such mitigating factors where certain games there was well over a dozen of the first squad that were chosen ending up missing. But you can't get away from no wins, just one goal. When you go back in, it's going to be, what, two training sessions again maybe before you're flying to Belgrade to play Serbia. All the COVID protocols, it doesn't feel like the same sort of enjoyable camp that we would have heard of for years, where the players are buzzing to get in and you again get to meet up with family. How do you push those 8 games to the back of your mind and somehow start afresh with a buzz and a confidence for such a tough game in Serbia to start off with?
Yeah, listen, first and foremost, we're going to have to. There's no getting away from that. If we want to be successful come March and moving forward in the World Cup campaign, we're going to have to brush it off and try and forget about it. It's not been an easy few trips, the last few trips. There's no getting away from that. Results, goals, like you said. The Slovakia one's probably been one of our better performances. That we played well in the game. Had the majority of players available to pick from. And hopefully, first and foremost, that would be the case come March. That we'll have a strong squad to pick from. There won't be any COVID issues. Hopefully not too many injuries. And hopefully the world will be in a better place and moving forward in the right direction, I think.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.